evening, everyone. We'd like to call the
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to call the September 8th, 2025 meeting of the Sutton School Committee to order. Pursuant to Governor Haley's March 28th, 2025 order extending the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the school committee is in hybrid format and is being recorded. All meeting recordings will be made available after proceedings on the town's website and YouTube channel. Meeting, YouTube, and Zoom links can be found at www.suttonmass.org/cable-department. Members of the public wishing to speak in public forum may do so by approaching the microphone and stating their name and address. Public forum is limited to 3 minutes per person. Max time for public forum is 15 minutes. The school committee meeting has been called to order. Each member should state their name and whether they are attending in person or remotely.
Patrick Royce in person.
Erin Reed Erickson in person.
Jill Kozachka in person.
Jennifer Darling in person.
Chris Matera in person.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin public forum tonight, I know many of you are here to address the concerns with the library and the high school, shared common middle school, high school library. Concerns with availability for student use, learning, collaboration, and concerns about staffing changes this year. I want to provide you with factual information before we open up to public forum for speakers. The FY25 budget was approved by the school committee last spring, which included the recommendation from former high school principal Ted McCarthy, middle school principal Ann Corin, and middle school high school assistant principal Brian Laporto that the library assistant position should be cut, and instead the library salary or the salary should be allocated to provide for the addition of another instructional assistant to support students' academic needs. School committee approved the budget based on recommendations of building-based administration. The current administration, Mr. Urquhart, Mr. Ricken, and Mr. Nedzwicki, recognize the importance of the library and having it available to students. Just to be clear, the library is not closed all day. At no point was it ever closed all day, and Superintendent Paget will address specifics later on in this meeting. The library is only closed during periods 3 and 6 when the librarian teaches middle school classes. Teachers and students are currently able to access the library after school from 2 o'clock to 2:30, at 7:45 a.m. until the first period, during periods 5 and 7, and during advisory using the following schedule. Middle school students drop days 2, 4, and 6. High school students drop days 3, 5, and 7. And with that, we'd like it to open up to public forum if anyone is here to speak.
All right, good evening, Ben Rougemont, 40.5 Maple Lane. I know you just said all that, but I'm still just gonna
Sure.
state my point. I'm here today to talk about something that is too important to overlook, our school library. Right now, it is only open at a limited time, and I know it is open, but it is limited for us. It is extremely limited for very important times. A library is not just a room with shelves and books. It is the space where students can take what they've learned in class and expand it, question it, and connect it with new ideas. Classrooms provide us with guidance, structure, and instruction, but the library is where we learn to guide ourselves. It is where we develop the independence to choose what to read, what to research, and what to imagine. Think about what a library represents. It represents access. It represents opportunity. It represents equality. In the library, every student has the same chance to pick up a book, whether it's a classic novel, a science journal, or a biography of someone who changed the world. For students who don't have shelves of books at home, the library levels the playing field. It gives everyone, regardless of background, the resources to grow. It's also important to remember that not all learning happens on a screen. Yes, the internet is powerful, but not every student has reliable access to it, and not every website is reliable or trustworthy. In the library, we find information that has been carefully selected, organized, and preserved. There is comfort and credibility in pulling a book off a shelf and knowing that it has lasting value. A library teaches us not just to find information, but to think critically about the information we consume. The library is not only about academics, it's also about peace. Every student knows the school day can be loud, stressful, and overwhelming. Between classes, sports, tests, and responsibilities at home, sometimes we just need a place to breathe. The library is that place. It is quiet but not lonely. It is calm but not empty. It is the one spot in school where a student can sit down, open a book, and feel their shoulders relax. That matters more than we realize. A library supports not only our minds, but our well-being. And most importantly, an issue I see among my friends, at Sutton High School, we have a thing called VHS. VHS is Virtual High School, which has class in the library. We also have SPP, which I have no idea what it stands for, but it's basically a study block for juniors and seniors. For VHS students and SPP students, they have been forced to sit in the cafeteria with, at Sutton, we have quite the problem with some people roaming the hall being disturbing. The library is an amazing place with great seats, great natural lighting, great everything, where VHS and SPP took place. But for many students, VHS and SPP no longer takes place in the library, which is absolutely unacceptable for students taking high rigor courses such as AP Calculus BC. So overall, I asked the committee, let's not look at only the challenges in front of us, let's look at the bigger picture. Let's recognize the true worth of our library and commit ourselves to keeping it accessible, because when we open the library, we do more than unlock a room. We unlock imagination, we unlock opportunity, we unlock potential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vivian Bregman, 188 Lots Road. I've been a part of Sutton School Systems my entire life, and I'm currently going into my junior year. I'd like to speak on the increasingly serious issue of how the middle and high school library has been operating this school year from a personal standpoint. I take all honors and AP classes, play 3 seasons of school sports, and I'm a captain of the robotics team, so I naturally don't have as much time after school to work on schoolwork or to study. Last year, I started utilizing the library more before school to get ahead on assignments, study for a test, or catch up on late work. The library works as an essential safe space for all students during many different times of the day. I also started going to the library more during advisory to do work, instead of trying to do it in the cafeteria, where it's loud and not a good environment for learning. Personally, I can attribute a good deal of my success to the fact that I had a dedicated space to focus in, but also the skills that having so much access to a valuable resource taught me, most notably time management. I believe that the biggest adjustment going from middle to high school, even off to college, is learning how to appropriately manage your time. It's what makes or breaks your grade and your successes. This does not only apply to me. In a study for the U.S. Department of Education, it was concluded that there is a relationship between time management and academic achievement of higher secondary students. Having staff to keep the library open to more students gives them a better option and a way to learn how to manage their valuable school time. Thus, this would directly impact not only their quantitative success, but also their preparedness for the world after high school, by teaching them that it is crucial to set time aside to focus on what you need to do to accomplish your goals and your standards. With lots of changes to the staff this school year, it is understandable that it will be hard for students to adjust and that minor changes to the system will be needed. However, I know that I speak on behalf of nearly all the high school students when I say that having the library accessible for the whole day is not only something that could benefit some select people, but is fundamental for our education and skill development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chloe Goldman, 3 Brookside Drive. Every time I hear about something the school board has done, it's another cut, it's another restriction, it's another thing barred. And I understand that your job is hard, but I find lots of trouble understanding why the library has to be involved in something when there's no financial benefit to taking it away. What I ask is, when will it end and when will it be enough? Why do we have to cut everything that makes this school worth attending? If some of you came in for just 10 minutes in the morning, you'd understand why we need the library. Where do we stand in the morning? In the middle of the hallway. What it used to be was the library. We used to stay there in the mornings, interact with one another, check out Chromebooks and chargers and books, and actually have a centralized place in such a small school. Now, there's nowhere. If you were to go in during classes, you would see people doing SPP and VHS work on the desks, getting higher grades, sometimes even just taking a break before having a long day ahead of them. Where do we go now? The cafeteria. The cafeteria is cold, it's loud, and it doesn't effectively work as a place where you'd be able to study, where else do you go when middle school is having lunch halfway through the cycle? The auditorium. The desk is the size of a piece of paper. Where am I supposed to take notes? Where do I put a notebook? Where do I put my notebook? There's nowhere to go. It doesn't make any sense if my Chromebook dies second period. There's 4 to 5 hours before I can skip fifth period to go all the way to the library and check out a Chromebook or charger. During those 4 to 5 hours, what am I supposed to do? I hope I brought one from home. There's no opportunities to actually do anything unless you're fortunate enough for your teacher to have one, and there are going to be several students who also need those chargers because Chromebooks are become an essential part of the school experience. If you take those away and the resources to those away while we're still using them doesn't make any academic sense. I sent a form to all of you about half an hour ago, and I'd really appreciate it if you took the time to look at it. It has 30 very well-written responses from students around our school saying the exact same things I am, that it's difficult to concentrate and impossible to learn and have a good school experience when the singular place our school came together as one has been taken away from us for no reason. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's the age of reading glasses. Erica Osborne, 7 Dodge Road in Sutton. I am not here to speak about the library, so sorry. I apologize if I'm taking anyone else's time on that. Buses. So we spoke about this last year at least twice, and we don't have a GPS on the bus at this point in time. And I recognize it is still early in the school year, and I have an N of 1 here, right? So I have one daughter in the school system. Bus was late, second day of the school year. It happens, the bus is late. I had her out there 15 minutes early like we were supposed to. Bus is supposed to be there at 6:53 in the morning. By 7:10, the bus had not arrived. I had no way of knowing this except for I'm tracking her on the phone, right? I can see her where she is. She's texting me, Mom, the bus isn't here. Great, I'm now gonna drive you to school. She gets out of the car. I'm like, can you tell the secretary the bus didn't get there? And she's like, no. She's a middle schooler. It's fine, I got it. I contact the Department of Transportation, Missy, I think her name is. Lovely person, she got right back to me. And she's like, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. I wasn't made aware until the high school secretary told me. I'm not sure why it takes the high school secretary to tell the Department of Transportation that the bus is running late. We should, at this point in time, have a GPS system on the bus in real time so that we're tracking our buses. It shouldn't be a multi-step process to find out where our buses are in real time. And then the elementary buses were made aware that the buses were late for bus 10. Marvelous, I'm glad that they were made aware, but then I had to take time out and drive kiddo to school, right? So I'm not sure how many other parents were impacted that day. Second step for today is school committee goals. This was brought up at last meeting, and you had asked for input on school committee goals. So, doing my research, I spent some time reading about the Massachusetts Association of School Committee. Apparently there's a website for this. And their information on the roles and responsibilities for the school committees and superintendents. And there's a lot of information on there, and one of them was performance standards. So the school committee evaluates the superintendent. It's talked about a lot, it's been talked about in the other past meetings that I've attended. But what wasn't talked about was evaluating the school committee itself. So the school committee can perform a self-evaluation. And I'd love to see that happen. So maybe it's input from parents, from the committee, or from the committee itself, but from the community at large, right? So how can we, as parents, help and support the school committee on that self-evaluation and with the goals that you guys are working on? Additionally is advocacy. So I think we're coming forward with tri-board, we're getting more involved with the school, with the village in general. Wonderful, but what about with other school committees in the area? What are they doing and what are they doing well? What area of opportunity can we learn from them? And then bring that forward here to Sutton, but also in general in terms of learning from them and maybe going higher. Is it funding issues, right? We hear about funding all the time, especially as we go into school budget session. Do we need to bring those funding areas at a higher level to the state and then advocate at the state level with other school committees? Because the louder a voice we have, the better of an area of opportunity that we have.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cameron Lawson, English teacher in the high school, and I address you this evening as a concerned English teacher. But I'm not here necessarily to speak to the school committee, but more importantly, the citizens of Sutton, which I'm hoping are watching, and will not read about this later on the Sutton site. Tonight I'll address the current state of the libraries at our school. Access to the library has been dramatically reduced since April. At that point, the high school library assistant was sent to the elementary library, and because of the shortage of IAs, student access was dramatically reduced. Before that, at 7 a.m., as you have heard, high school students were in the library morning and throughout the day. And I know this because my classroom is directly across from the library, and there's big windows for anyone who hasn't been there. You could see inside. The librarian and the library assistant would run contests, select books for teachers, work with teachers on projects, and students do the same, and so much more. And as the students have said, they had a comfortable space to work, learn, gather, and read. Yes, read, which matters to an English teacher and should matter to a society that wants to remain relevant. Despite plenty of evidence that might suggest otherwise, students still read. The library does not operate at previous levels, and because of this, access to books and appropriate study space has been restricted. I want to give a shout out to the elementary library. Thanks to the efforts of an IA down there this year and others in the past, that library is open and students do have access to books, but asking one person to cover an entire library with 600 plus students is a difficult and, I dare say, near impossible ask. Despite this wonderful effort, and again, thank you to the person who does this, the elementary library does not have a certified librarian working in it. To the best of my knowledge, it never has, and that's not right. I don't know how to address that other than to say whoever did that, I cannot understand you, whoever that was, and it was not the people in this room. So if you heard that, shame on them.
Do we just continue or do we try to record?
Still recording.
Okay.
Zoom,
Yeah, we'll just on Zoom.
I just get rid of Zoom. We just
Okay.
won't do it because
We're still recording and
Still recording,
we'll
it's
just
still
continue on.
available.
Okay,
It's on live stream, it's on YouTube.
okay,
So,
thank you. Sorry, Cameron.
No, you don't have to apologize to me. The apologies are to the people who sadly had to hear that. And it's not on the people again in this room. Just one more reason why we need better education and people who can read, so maybe we can educate people who think that kind of stuff is appropriate. With the middle high school movement to reduce screen time, which is a tremendous thing, now is the time to continue to find ways to put more books in the hands of students. This will happen if we really find a solution to this problem. Thanks to the recommendations by NEASC and the librarians' efforts, the libraries are more accommodating, inclusive, inviting, and they were the social and learning hub of ours, and they should be at any school. I have to believe we'll have a NEASC visit soon, and I strongly doubt this current situation will help us out. Unless the town can find a way to provide the money and resources to make our libraries a central focus of our schools, we will not see the progress we should. If we do not have the money, we need it. I cannot speak to the finances, as that is not my job, nor am I privy to the current financial state of the district. But if I were a Sutton resident, this would greatly concern me. If I were a Sutton resident, I would want my children to receive the best education and opportunities possible, and I think we're trying to do that. I think we need more resources. So I say to the town, please take the time to work with all of us to find the best way to get students back into the library and consistently provide books for their hands and their minds. I would again say that the librarian and the IA are doing great work, but they need help. More importantly, the students that have spoken already this evening and the many others that they represent need this to make their educational experience the best it can be. Is it getting harder to get students to read? And are Americans reading less? Data suggests as much. Maybe kids aren't as likely to read, but unless we consistently promote it and get them into libraries and put books in their hands, we have little chance to change things for the better. Unless we give them proper spaces to complete their work, to study, to do group projects, and to simply find a safe space to be themselves, we cannot expect things to get better. I realize that across the district we're working with new administration, And I know that we are only 7 days into the school year, and they cannot be expected to have everything solved immediately, especially when it were things that existed before they arrived. They are working hard to come up with a solution, and they deserve more time than 7 days. However, well, I shouldn't say sorry, I jumped. First time reading, it seems like. I don't know their to-do list, nor, might I say, do I want to. That's their job. But this should be at or near the top. To the town, I ask you to please help us properly staff our libraries, find a way to return them to their full schedule, and let's work together to give our children the best educational experience possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
The 15 minutes is up.
Okay. All right. Thank you for everyone who came to speak at our public forum. No, we won't open it up to anybody on Zoom. All right, moving on to our consent agenda, and we do need a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Chris Matera, I'll second.
Okay. With a first and a second, is there any discussion for minutes or the bill schedule? Okay.
I just, one thing, this might not be the proper time, but the companies that are in there, like MPC, Whitewater, all those, I was thinking it might be beneficial at some point if we talk about like what each of them do, or.
Yep. Actually, some of those companies, the way I've set up their contracts, they're actually asked to come into the school committee to do a presentation once a year. Typically, I've extended that to the chair, and whether they want to add it to the agenda or not is up to the committee. But their contracts do state that should the committee request them to come in to do a presentation of the state of the district, for instance, the water treatment plant, it's in their contract.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion, we will take it to a vote. Patrick, could you start?
Royce, aye.
Reed Erickson, aye.
Kozachka, aye.
Darling, aye.
Matera, aye.
All right. Motion to approve consent agenda as presented passes 5-0. Moving on to the education portion of our meeting, and we do need a motion for this one too.
I move to approve the Washington DC field trip as presented.
I'll second. Reed Erickson, second.
All right, with a first and a second, do we have anyone here to?
It's me. So in your packets, you had the field trip approval form and also an agenda for the trip. They are looking to leave on Tuesday, June 2nd, and they will be returning on Friday, June 5th. Right now, the estimate is that 78 students in 8th grade will be attending, and we have 4 chaperones right now. The trip leader will be Mr. Levin Savage, teaches 8th grade civics. Vanessa Hurley is the co-leader, and then Mr. Ricken and Mr. Nedzwicki will also be joining the trip in June. If you look, the total cost of the trip is $83,000, and it breaks down per student to $1,065. That is before they have done any fundraising opportunities, so that price may go down. That's just the preliminary estimate. Do you guys have any specific questions? They've been doing this trip for years. The schedule of events stays pretty much the same. It is the same company that they've always worked with. And pending approval tonight, they will be having a parent meeting on September 18th at 7:30 to address this with parents. And then if students do choose not to go, that is an option, and they stay back with teachers here, and we arrange activities for them to do that week.
Go ahead.
Sorry, is there any district subsidy along with this, or this is fully funded by the students fundraising?
Fully funded by the students and their families.
I think this is great to see this continue to go on. The cost is fixed, though. It's not going to go up from that, right?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So, I was looking at last year's packet, and it had like a breakdown of when payments were due and all that, and.
So they're working on that with the
Okay.
rep. They have a meeting with the rep this Thursday, all of the chaperones, and they're looking to make the payment cycle go from, it was previously 4 payments down to 3 payments, because they found it to be a lot of paperwork and chasing people around So that I do know that that's one of the things they're looking to do, and that they're gonna do that plan on Thursday.
And just that someone will be in charge of fundraising like last year.
Yep,
and-
they've already started to have conversations about that. They'll work with the administration at the middle school to do those fundraising trips and events.
It was an amazing trip, and I wish I didn't spend any time worrying, because I tell you, the hotel, every detail was thought through, and as a parent, I just wish I hadn't worried, because it was incredible, so.
And I think it's just important to note too, that if a family ever did have financial concerns, they can reach out to the building-based administration, and a student would never be denied an opportunity to attend DC due to finances.
So there's scholarships available, great, that's it.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is also that while the, I think, list of what they do hasn't been primarily adjusted, I've heard comments both at this committee meeting and also at the parent meeting, having had a student go through it, where they really do take the experiences of the previous year. My oldest happened to go when the Canadian wildfires and the smoke was all the way down to DC, but regardless, that was a, we hope, one-off though. And what you find though is they're very responsive to this. For example, there was a dinner cruise and it wasn't as well received as they had hoped. So I noticed in this year's they've adjusted.
Yeah.
So I just also give credit to that organization working with building-based administrators to kind of based on previous experiences, they do fiddle around the edges. And they keep those students very, very busy.
Very busy.
Action-packed schedule, I know for sure. Hopefully a little cooler this year. I know last year for our 8th graders, it was very hot down in DC.
We only had one trip to the hospital last year.
Yes.
And who's,
Not my, nothing major, just a few stitches.
who's
His
covering
roommate,
for,
but not my
who's covering for Sean when he's on the field trip?
So I'll be over
Okay.
at that building, yeah.
I'm thankful that the school administrators post, I don't know about your child, but mine rarely communicated with me at all. So if it wasn't for the communication from the school, I would not have had any. All right. With no further discussion, we will take it to a vote. Patrick, want to start us off?
Royce, aye.
Rita Erickson, aye.
Kozachka, aye.
Darling, I.
Matera, aye.
All right. Washington DC field trip for 8th grade is approved 5-0. All right, Caitlin, you're up next again with our district improvement plans.
So within your packet were the 3 school improvement plans for the buildings. The Simonian Center for Early Learning and Sutton Elementary School Improvement Plan was a 2-year plan that was presented by Ms. Bachand last year at the school committee meeting. Nothing in this plan has changed. It has stayed consistent from the previous year. If you look in the district strategic goal that we're aligning to is the enhanced academic programming is goal number 1. So we're really working on the teaching and learning down there. And they're usually instructional strategies and programming to encourage student agency, academic and social emotional instruction. I'm not gonna go through all of it. You've had it. If you have questions, I can certainly answer it because I'm the one that wrote this when I was principal. The second goal for them is they're continuing to work on their positive behavior interventions and supports, which ties into our second district strategic goal. So that's on our social emotional learning and our DEI efforts. They will continue to have their PBIS support team. They will continue to have their Starbucks. If you looked in the superintendent newsletter today, there was a picture of the Starbucks and an explanation of what those are at the elementary level. So that is what they are continuing to focus on for this year. The middle school and the high school school improvement plans were both written by the previous administration with input from the staff. So we will be using those school improvement plans for this year because it wouldn't be fair to ask a new administrator to come in September and to write a new school improvement plan having not been in the building for more than 2 months. When I became principal at the elementary school, it was very similar. I kept the school improvement plan that the school council and the teachers and the previous principal had created from the year before. So this is a 1-year school improvement plan for each of those buildings. The middle school's focus is on promoting personal responsibility and the essential skills students need for the future. And there are a list of action steps and dates in there that the previous administration had included. and as well as what their evidence will be. And then their goal number 2 is on strengthening students' writing proficiency across all content areas. This is something that they decided to address based primarily on MCAS scores from last year and just an identified need. Again, all of the action steps with dates are listed there, and the evidence that they're going to be provided is listed as well. I've spoken with both Mr. Ricken and Mr. Nedzwicki, and they are on board for this school improvement plan for this year and understand their responsibility in adhering to it. For the high school, the 2 goals, the first goal is around artificial intelligence. So they are going to be doing some professional development around that and determining with the AI committee how it's going to be best used within the high school and how we can use it responsibly and teach students to use it responsibly. Again, there are some dates in there that Mr. Urquhart will adhere to with different PD opportunities, school leadership teams, that sort of stuff. Goal number 2 is around rigorous academic experience. So they are looking to vertically and horizontally align all content areas. So the work they're looking to do is to have the departments sit together, meet together, talk about what they're teaching, making sure that we aren't teaching the same thing in the same grades or the same courses. This is work that the elementary school has done the past 2 years as well, just to make sure that we're really teaching to the standards. So they will work on that primarily in building-based departments, and the goal is eventually, hopefully, for that to become a 6 through 12 vertical and horizontal alignment as well, and then bring in K-5 and align pre-K to 12 to make sure that we're giving the best educational experience possible. These all line up for later in the evening. I will talk about the superintendent entry plan. So our district strategic plan is in year 3 of 3. So we will be developing a new district strategic plan for next year. And that will be a 3-year plan. And the goal is then for all schools to then create new school improvement plans that are 2-year school improvement plans that will mirror the district strategic plan. So your school improvement plan really should be tied to your district strategic plan. And we will be moving to the template that the Simonian Center for Early Learning and Sutton Elementary School used to create their school improvement plan, just so that we're all consistent. And then we will also work on adding a 3-year professional development plan, because you have these district strategic plans and you have these school improvement plans, but how are you achieving them, and what PD are we then providing to teachers that aligns with those plans? So everything is aligning perfectly, which doesn't usually happen for the ends of each of these plans being June 30th.
Any questions, discussion?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, well, you wanna go first?
Cool, thanks. On the Simonian Center plan,
Yep.
you mentioned supporting educators as they implemented the SRSD.
Yep.
Do you have any quantifiable data that you can point to see if this is working or not yet, or is it too early?
It's too early.
It's too early, okay.
So last year was the first year that SRSD was implemented, and it was only implemented in K to 2. And it was only 2 units. So as we continue to grow and do more with the SRSD framework, grades 3 through 5 are doing the professional development this year and teaching it, and then we'll be able to look at some of our data from there.
So at the end of this school year, we should be able to do a look back
For K to 2.
for K to 2, okay.
Yep.
My next question is on your goal number 2.
Yep.
And it was distribution of the screeners. And one of the action steps are surveying and reviewing data. I'm just kind of wondering what is the data showing in terms of that?
So one of the screeners that they used last year was the BIMAS screener, and we administered that in 5th grade. I don't want to give you the wrong grade. I believe it was 10th, and I believe it was 7th, but I would have to double check on what the middle school and the high school grade levels were. It was administered 2 times last year, once in the fall and once in the spring, and it's more so just gives you an immediate pulse of what the school is like. When they administered it, they had all of the data, and if certain questions pinged as red, meaning they were alarming, there was a plan in place to meet with those students and to go over whatever they had said. And then the school support student services team, which is led by our director of special education, they meet once a month, and then they look at that data and determine what type of program should then be put in place for social emotional learning. So we use Second Step, we use zones of regulation, and then they do some counseling support groups based on things that are identified.
So this is an ongoing goal. Like, you're never going to finish this goal. You'll always be.
With this one, No, you're never gonna finish it because you'll continue to administer the survey and then you'll continue to make changes to your social emotional programming based off of the information from those surveys.
That makes sense. Can I ask about the high school one?
Yeah.
So for the
I will try my
AI,
best. Yep.
for the AI goal,
Yep.
you know, I was looking over this and I know there were some guidelines developed.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point out a couple of things as I was thinking about this. There's a couple studies out from MIT. One of them is the state of AI in business, and I can give this to Di or Hannah just for the record, but you know, 95% of organizations they found who implemented AI got zero return from it. I'm not saying we don't need to implement AI. I just think we need to really look at what's going on and what is our best use case for it. We shouldn't be chasing the AI buzzword, right? But we should really be kind of digging into what that means for us. There's another study out. It's called the cognitive debt when using ChatGPT, and essentially they hooked up people to EEGs as they were doing certain tasks, writing essays, searching for information, and they found that people who are primarily dependent on these large language models actually had less brain activity than people who were, you know, Googling or whatever and looking at sources and things like that. And so I point these things out not to scare people, but I think it's we need to have kind of our eyes open on this stuff. And not, you know, advise people to just like, you know, throw your writing in here and have it proofread, you know, really, what are we using it for, right?
And I think that's what the goal of the AI committee is to determine what platforms are we gonna use, how do we want students to use it, what can be beneficial, and then also that conversation of how it can be beneficial to teachers and how we shouldn't be using it as well.
Who are the members of the AI committee?
So it was a world language teacher, a history teacher, it was the former high school principal, it was the former high school assistant principal, and then there is a parent who teaches at Holy Cross who did some PD for us in AI, and then the technology specialist. One thing that I became aware of is that they did not ask our director of technology and operations to sit on the AI committee, which I found to be a misstep just because that person needs to be involved in anything technology related. So he will sit on that committee this year, and it will be the new high school and middle school administration along with those other teachers.
So those teachers are staying on that were on it last year?
So they have already met with Mr. Urquhart once, at least, I know, and there have been emails going back and forth with Dan Durgan, the Director of Technology and Operations, to get that up and running.
And is there an intent to, effectively come back with a formal policy by year end?
So right now, there are more guidelines that are in the handbook that we're just basically protecting from student use if students were using it to write papers or things like that. But the goal is to have a more succinct and detailed policy that we can put out that the school committee could then approve.
Okay, thanks.
My question was actually combining two documents, which was you had given us a look at what PD is shaping up to be for this year, including what was done for the first 2 days.
Yep.
My concern with that is it didn't seem that and it might just be that there was the lack of time for the new building-based administrator, but both of the middle school and high school had PD as their kind of first step calendar-wise to meet their goals. And there's no PD that looked to match it.
Yeah.
So was that done last year? And I just didn't
So the calendar was put together and we looked for a PD. So PD is primarily the responsibility of the building-based administrator to schedule and align with their school improvement plan. We were unable to find any documents from the previous administration for PD that they had started to plan for the following year. We, over the summer, identified that, and Mr. Urquhart, when he started in July, it may have been July, beginning of August, sent an email to all of the department heads asking if there was any plan for professional development that they had been privy to at the time, and it didn't appear that there was. So he's working with department heads to put together what that plan can be for this year, having not known that until July 1.
Okay. So the anticipation is that the dates, that first date of, for example, I think
Yeah.
one of them was a November date and one of them, that those are not gonna be met because there is no PD that's been set up?
So, by October 15th, so each academic department, they can still meet before October 15th to talk about AI at department head meetings. It doesn't necessarily need to be during a professional development day. So they have department meetings every other week, and then they also have staff meeting time every other week.
On the
So
middle
those-
school one, which is using MyCap,
Oh, so we do have a MyCap, that's a grant, so
Yeah.
that team does meet.
and that has already
They have
begun.
met this summer twice already. They've met with both Mr. Ricken, Mr. Urquhart, Mr. Nedzwicki, and then also with the middle school MyCap team, and then the director of special education who helped them to submit the grant for that. So the grant was not written, and we didn't have a middle school principal start until August. And luckily, the submission deadline for the grant was put out, so we were able to submit that grant with the help of the middle school team once our middle school principal was hired.
So, in that case, looks like we have enough alignment, the stars aligned.
Yes.
So that now that the second year of these 2-year plans
Yep.
is on
So
target.
this was only the high school and the middle school were both on one-year plans,
Oh, but
they had
set
never
up by the
been-
past.
but set up by the past administration because they look at their school improvement plan and school council in the spring, so that they created and drafted this with their school council and with their staff on a PD day. It was either April or May.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's interesting is if you look at the Simonian one and then you look at the PD days.
Yep.
There's, you can see it.
Yep.
You can see, oh, this is what we're attempting, and then here it is.
So we had a 2-year PD plan that we created at the Simonian Center and the elementary school to mirror the school improvement plan. And it doesn't appear that we had plans that mirrored our school improvement plan either last year or for this upcoming year.
Okay, my next question is a little bit of a follow-up from Chris's questions. You mentioned the BIMAS, I think it was.
Yep.
At least I had heard that was not gonna be continued, that was am I thinking of the right one?
So we have funding for BIMAS, and it's administered twice a year. Unless I missed something, which is totally possible.
All right.
I can check in with special ed, so it is opt-in and it is opt-out. So parents don't have to have their kids take the survey. We send out a letter home when we're about to take it. But as far as I know, it was
It will
going to be a
continue.
year, and we were following the kids. So then this year, the kids that were in 5th grade, we would hope for them to take it when they were in 6th grade so that we can analyze the data year over year to see if we're seeing trends in social emotional learning.
And do you feel that the BIMAS is the testing, or if you will, the data collection for PBIS? Or is PBIS, are you implementing a separate data
So-
collection? Because PBIS is supposed to be based on it's data heavy.
Right. So PBIS is the Starbucks. So when we have the Starbucks at the elementary school, we can collect data by looking at how many kids are able to attend our school-wide events by turning in 50 Starbucks, or how many kids are going to the Starbucks cart, because they're earning the Starbucks by exhibiting the positive behavior that's being modeled throughout the school.
Okay. I guess I thought in reading on PBIS, and maybe also based on some conversations when it was first brought into the building, it was also to say, okay, but you're looking at data in terms of there's less referrals for.
Oh, yeah, so we
extreme-
also use Swiss. So Swiss is a behavior management system.
that
And
was the
so
one I was looking
Courtney sends out a monthly PowerPoint to her staff at the elementary school as to trends in behavior based on the information that's in Swiss. So they monitor that as well. They are just getting into using Swiss at the middle school and the high school to track behavior. So Mr. Nedzwicki has taken that on and sent out an email, I believe it was this morning, telling staff how we can access it now that we have the same platform available for them to track behavior, because previously it was being tracked in a administrative created Google Doc.
Okay, so what we would hope to see after having PBIS fully embedded in the building at the lower grades, everybody's on board, they've had the PD, they know how to implement it, is that you would be able to look at the Swiss data.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't go back and create it when it was not there.
Yep.
But that over time, you would see that the Swiss data would start to go down, which would then tell us
Yep,
that the
that it's working.
PBIS is working.
Yep, so we monitor things by their considered major or minor incidents, And it also tracks who takes care of it, what the follow-up is with it, and we can see certain students' patterns, we can see grade level patterns, we can see time of day patterns. So that's one of the things that Courtney often sends out too, is that we see a lot of spike in behavior at recess, which is to be expected at some points. And so last year, one of the things that they did at the elementary school was they actually restaffed, or I guess reorganized the staffing related to recess for a certain grade level, because they realized they were getting an insane amount of referrals for that grade level during recess time. And that meant that we took people from other assigned duties that they had and we shifted them to be at recess so that there were more bodies out there. We didn't need to do that for every grade level, but then we also had the data to back up that shifting of staff members to recess started to bring in, decrease the behaviors that we were seeing, was one example.
And then my last question was just on our little bit of the AI discussion, which is, sounds like there will be some continuity in the existing
Committee.
committee. Will there be opportunities for anybody else to join from the community, or is that? Or is that
Absolutely,
spot?
yep.
Okay.
Last year, we had asked, and I don't think anyone from the committee was available to join, but there's always also spots for a committee member to join the committee as well. And then when they finally schedule their first meeting, they can send out a blast to parents about wanting to join the committee as well. Same with students. There were students also on the committee. I don't know if I forgot to mention that, but there were 3 students that were also on the committee.
So is there going to be a timeline or next step for that then?
I know that Dan was meeting about it with the administration. I think one of the things is and I heard Mr. Law say it during public forum, is that there's been a lot thrown at them, and it's day 7, and so they're trying to prioritize what's going to meet when. So I don't want to tell you what's going to happen in the next week, but I should have an update for you by the October meeting as to when they're going to meet.
So there's representative from the high school and middle school, but not the elementary?
No, there was
Have-
not.
Have we given consideration? Did we ask and there was just no takers, or?
I would have to get back to you. I think they didn't ask,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm just thinking, it's something that's really going to be utilized district-wide, whether it's just the kids or
I
teachers
can
as well.
certainly
So
put it out there for
I
someone.
think it'd be nice just to have some additional perspective.
I think one of the things that we find when we're trying to do these committees, and it would just be something that I can sit with Harrison and look at the budget, is just because of the 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. end time, oftentimes the AI committee's meeting from 2 to 3 after school, and then our elementary teachers are still teaching at that time. But we've also found ways to release people during the school day to meet, so if we need to do that, we could look into doing that as well. But I can absolutely have them reach out to the elementary school to see if there's anybody interested. We have an instructional technology teacher down there, so it might be something that she would be interested in joining.
And it might even be beneficial to have like a spin-off committee for the Simonian Elementary. What at least I saw with our class size committee was that there's very different perspectives on both ends, right?
Sure.
So the different objectives, so it might be beneficial to have 2 simultaneous committees.
Yeah. I just want to make sure there's no, formal policies being brought forward without
without
having
input.
some
The
voice from the
input, yep.
elementary.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, actually, just as a model, in the district learning teams where we used to meet, where it was open, full community, staff from both buildings and, but held in the evenings. I will say that, Harrison, to your point, we always tried to structure groups so that you had a Simonian parent or, somebody who would kind of say, I'm thinking about it with my cap on, of the younger students and one. But sometimes it is also important to have them talking
Absolutely.
to each other and kind of sharing the different perspectives. And sometimes we would break into separate rooms and deal with issues separately.
I guess my question about the AI would be, did the elementary students have the same access to AI, like through Google, Gemini, or whatever they're using?
Right now, all of the AI tools are primarily blocked
Oh.
from use. Yeah.
Well, except that anybody who does a Google search
Yeah,
is getting
Right.
AI.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. so-
Blockish.
But that was one of the things the committee wanted to focus on, was that there are teachers that want to use certain tools within their class, but it's not so easy as to just turn it on for these 18 kids during period B. We have to have some understanding amongst all of our staff as to what we're gonna use and how we're gonna use it and what we're gonna say is okay and what might not at this point in time be okay. And I think that can be frustrating for teachers, and I hear that because they really wanna try something new that they've maybe attended their own PD on, but it's just not that simple of a fix to do.
Well, and kids are using it now, and we're really behind the 8 ball, I think.
Alright.
I have one more question. On the Swiss behavior data, what is the first class where they'll have gone through this, the first cohort?
Swiss was
Or-
here before I came as principal,
it's
but it
3
wasn't consistently used. So I think the year before I came was the first year. And then in year 2, Ms. Bauschand at that time was assistant principal. She realized that there really hadn't been much training for the teachers as to how to use it, and there wasn't consistency in uploading everything. So this will be year 4, I believe.
And does this data follow
Only
you?
at the elementary school.
Does it follow you though to middle school and high school?
It will now that we
It will,
have it
okay.
at the middle school and the
So
high
then,
school.
what is the first class where you'll be able to look back and say, "Gee, this was like super successful," or "Gee, this wasn't successful"?
So I would say,
Current third graders, right?
yeah,
The current third graders.
if you want the consistency of time and staff being able to use it and understand how to use it and input stuff and make sure that those expectations are understood, that that's how we're tracking student behavior. Yeah. Probably third.
Okay.
Alright, if we don't have any more discussion, we'll move on to budget and finance and the FY 26 budget update.
All right, so I won't take too much of your time tonight, because we do have the budget subcommittee later this week, so we'll try to go more in depth, on budgetary conversations at that point. One key note is that we did add in a FY 26, year-to-date summary for the entire district, per your request. So that is a new slide on the FY 26 standing update. It just gives you a high-level summary. So if there's any questions on how we went about adding that to this packet, I'd be more than happy to answer it. I do want to quickly touch base on a few things as it relates to bill schedules. So you guys might or might not have noticed that there haven't been as many bill schedules or not as much. That is because we work hand in hand with the town accountant, with that position kind of being in a transitionary period. All bill schedules and actually the warrant itself won't be pushed through till the week of the 22nd, right? So Tim Harrison will come back in for one final warrant to be pushed through before the new town accountant starts, right? So we'll have a little bit of a backlog as far as purchasing goes, but you know, rest assured, we're still purchasing on the district's end. It's just not going through the full cycle on the town's end until all parties are updated. I'll touch quickly on a few of the key subjects or key revolving accounts really quick before I go over to asset disposal. So one of the areas that I wanted to touch on that I'm directing my staff to focus on is debt collection. The district right now has a very successful extension program, as we've talked about, but it did come to light. I tasked Michelle Bazinet, the director of the extension program, with looking at all outstanding bills, and as of today, the program has an outstanding balance from a variety of different families, all ages. Some don't even have kids in the district anymore, of about $22,311.58. So that's a substantial non-collected balance, and it's probably been generated since the program's founding 10 plus years ago. So memos are being sent out to the families in question. Many of them are still in the district. We're going to work our best to develop some type of a repayment plan if they are families with financial difficulties. Ideally, we want to collect as much of this as possible. Realistically, it's probably going to be a bad debt, right? You're going to, in the private sector, you would write this off as a bad debt. Here, you're just not going to collect that revenue, right? So we'll do our best to collect it, but like I said, if your students are no longer in the district, there's not really many repercussions that the district can do except, have a debt collector engage in that, and that's way beyond
We're not doing that,
my
right?
operation.
Are we doing?
If you have kids in the program and you have an outstanding balance, what's the procedure? What's the process?
So if you have kids in the program, right, we like to work with you to the best of our ability. I think Michelle has a very good sense of everyone who still has an outstanding balance, and she has been working with a lot of those families to develop some type of repayment plan that works for them, but also make sure the district receives what we're owed. I would say there are almost no families that are not responding back to Michelle at this point with students still in the program. And if they do have students in the program and have a substantive outstanding balance and they're not responding, chances are their students might not be able to be enrolled into that program in future years.
Okay.
And for families that no longer have a student, I mean, how many years back are you going, and are you providing invoice
We're
opportunity?
trying to just clean up the ProCare system as a whole. So that was implemented, I want to say 2 directors ago. Realistically, we're not going to get those funds back. Those families have probably moved out of town in some instances, and whether you're going to have a up-to-date address to even contact them is debatable. So, we'll do our best to collect it. I don't think that the district did its due diligence in prior years to make sure that its books were properly closed out with the ProCare system, because it is a separate ledger, so to speak, when comparing it to Munis and the general ledger. So, I'll have an update for you later in the school year to see where we stand with this. It's my goal to close out as much of this as possible.
Well, you're not referring people to debt collectors?
No,
Okay.
no.
Just wanted to make
Harrison's a
sure.
debt collector.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking
Except
at
for
the
Harrison.
debt collector. So I'll touch quickly on the bus revolving account. As of today, we finished printing all bus passes, which is grades 6 to 12. Those will be distributed to the middle school and high school later this week. They'll separate those bus passes according to advisory rooms and distribute those to the students. And then a thrill share will be sent out to all families and students indicating, you need to have the bus pass on you if you're riding the bus. If you don't have the bus pass on you, when we do a periodic, sample of the students coming off of the bus, in the afternoon, we never deny students transportation to the school. It's only when they're getting on the bus from the school to go home. If we decide to go out to a specific bus or all the buses at the middle school, high school, and check bus passes, and we run it through our system and they didn't pay, didn't register, chances are there's going to be a phone call going home to the families, right? As of right now, there are 16 families that are riding buses in town that have not paid, right? So that's about $3,000. There could be additional students that did not register, did not pay, and did not inform the district that they were even on the bus, that are just standing on the road, and the bus driver happens to see them on their route and opens the door and lets them on. Now, that's a concern because from a safety perspective, we have students riding the bus that we have no record of them getting on, getting off. If that bus ever were in an accident, we'd want to make sure that we have everyone accounted for. And right now, I can't confidently say that every driver is not letting students onto the bus, right? I hear it throughout the day, some of the staff who live in town have kids riding on the bus that have not done any of the following. And it's concerning because the district is responsible for those students, right? And it's not safe to have someone riding a bus that you don't even know is supposed to be on that bus. So we'll be doing periodic checks now that the bus passes are done. I will touch quickly on Ms. Osborne's question. Once my office did find out on the second day of school that there was a delay at the middle school, high school for that particular bus, we did reach out to AA Transportation to express how this is unacceptable behavior from my perspective, right? The district pays close to $1.5 million a year to this vendor. We expect to be communicated with if a bus is delayed. They informed me that the liaison for the district was pulled to go drive a bus for another school district and they didn't have anyone lined up. That's unacceptable on their behalf. if they have to pull someone, they need a plan in place to make sure they're communicating with my office. It shouldn't be that a parent called the secretary of the high school and said, the bus is running 20 minutes behind schedule, and then that secretary calls someone in my department to update them so a thrill share can go out. That's not the way the communication is supposed to take place. I expressed that with the owner of the bus company, and they're going to be getting back to me with a proper chain of command that goes through my office so that the communication can go out to all the buildings. So we're trying to address that in an efficient manner.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
Contractually, do we have service level agreements with AAA for this type of thing?
Yeah, we have a 5-year contract with AA Transportation. They're supposed to provide us with a liaison, someone at dispatch that is in communication with either myself or the transportation coordinator at any hour of the day. You know, and we work hand in hand throughout snow delays, weather emergencies, so there's really no reason for them not to communicate if they're pulling a liaison. That's our only point of contact without talking to either myself or my staff.
But is there a penalty where if they don't meet that obligation, they,
There's no penalty in place, but from the district's perspective, if you are continuing to exhibit that behavior, chances are, the school committee, the superintendent, business manager aren't going to award you a contract you can't fulfill. And that's not just a Sutton problem. Transportation's a problem across the state. We see similar issues with no communication because they're short on staff. They're pulling people to get by, but they still have a job to do. So that's been communicated with themselves. Is there any other questions on the budget update that I didn't touch base upon? I don't want to go into the details, but we'll have the budget subcommittee later this week.
I know we have the budget subcommittee. Thanks, Harrison. If I can just ask a few quick questions, and thank you. I appreciate you putting together the summary. It's very helpful. I think I know the answer to it, but the difference between year-to-date expenses and year-to-date encumbered.
Yep, so year-to-date expenses are anything that's gone through the bill schedule and the warrant, right? So we've processed, paid that bill, a check's been cut, the vendors received that, their balance is paid. An encumbrance is something that the business office can encumber or account against, right? So if it's a contract.
It's a commitment.
Yep, we're saying that we expect to fulfill this contract of $1.2 million for AA Transportation. We've received the invoice for September of $120,000. We still have, $1.2 million of committed in future expenses, right? So it's a proper accounting procedure, a checks and balance, if you will, so that when we end the fiscal year, if an encumbrance is still open, it triggers an alert in my department that says, hold on, our contract said that we would pay X amount of dollars, yet we still have remaining funds, or we're over budget. Someone needs to call, one of the department heads or building administration needs to contact that vendor and say, I think you mischarged us, or you didn't send a bill out for one of the months, right? So it's an internal checks and balance system that any proper business office in the school should have. It makes the system so much smoother, and it creates accountability on all parties' ends.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And can you just speak to it's a big number, right? The $1.3 million deficit in the tuition out. What's going on there?
So for any of the new committee members or anyone in the public, traditionally how we budget for out-of-district tuitions is a few primary funding sources. You have your IDEA 240 grant, your circuit breaker, and your general fund. We used to use school choice for out-of-district tuitions. We've stopped using that funding source for now. The general operating budget, as you can see, has $541,868 set aside, right? That's the budgeted amount in the general operating budget. Last spring, the committee voted to allocate a specific amount of these expenses to other funding mechanisms, being Grant 240 and Circuit Breaker, right? This is only in relation to the general fund, so you'll see that we pre-encumbered all out-of-district tuitions, regardless of if they are supposed to be housed in the general fund. And then at the end of the fiscal year, my team and the town accountant will go through and conduct a reclassification of funds to distribute those expenses to their proper GLs, being Grant 240 and Circuit Breaker. So it will balance out at the end, but for proper accounting right now, right, for us to be able to keep track of each of these contracts, we house it in the general fund.
So that 339% actually will go down quite a
Correct,
bit, yeah,
it's
okay.
fully balanced. Generally, what I've done with the committee is if there is something that you need to be alerted to, an anomaly, I'll let you know that that percentage is not accurate or it's above and beyond what my office expects it to be, and then we'll have conversations to look at alternative funding mechanisms, or if need be, to pursue some type of warrant or article for the special ed stabilization fund on the town side.
But that, we expect that that percentage will look as bad for
It's gonna look
month
bad for a
after
while,
month.
yeah.
Because you just
Right,
said you're not gonna
right.
reconcile till the end.
For the whole fiscal year.
The way circuit breaker works is it's a year in the rear for funding, and the state distributes it on a quarterly basis. So we're not in possession of those funds. We'll draw the general fund for each of those GLs to a negative balance. It's not a true negative. We'll reclassify those expenses, bring it back up to zero or full balance, and move those expenses over to either the revolving account for circuit breaker or the grant account.
Okay, thanks.
I just had one question on the building services one that's over. The percentage is 106% for the Simonian Center. Is that a similar situation, or is that something?
Yep, so when you look at building services, you'll see that the year-to-date expenses is only 19,000. That
But
means
you have a lot encumbered.
we have over almost $46,000 encumbered, right? So we haven't spent those funds, but it's reasonable to assume that by the end of the year, we will spend those funds. Building services have a lot of contracted expenses that fall outside of Object Code 57900. Some of those are like your contracted psychologists or contractors through French River, right? So they don't set all the time their hourly rates by our budget timeline. So when the special ed office enters their true expenses in, it could be greater than what was budgeted. And then if it is in excess of $10,000 per the committee's policy, either myself or the town accountant will start to engage in conversation to do a budgetary transfer from another GL that might have excess funds available. In most cases, how I've operated building services is the summer program lines tend to now have excess funds for a variety of reasons, whether we had more instructional assistants assist with the summer programming as opposed to STA members, and we'll take those excess funds and transfer them over to balance out any of the overage from building services. So we'll monitor it as the year goes on, but again, because almost 80% of that is encumbered or not spent to date, we won't worry about it until there's a need to do a transfer.
So it's something you similarly expected.
Yep.
And understood.
Nothing personal.
I was wondering.
Planning board.
I have a question.
Yep.
On the technology for the elementary school, you're 108% over. And then in the aggregate, it looks like you're at, what was it, 80 or 69%? Do you anticipate going over that?
Every building is different for tech. What the building-based administration engages with the technology director, sometimes they have a greater need. You know, some of those technology expenses might be special ed related. The student might need a specific software or a piece of hardware that the district didn't anticipate. So, you know, in the end, between all cost centers, as it relates to technology, all building locations, will be under that 100% threshold, but there are instances of specific student needs arising at a certain grade level that will push the building threshold above 100%, but the overall GL for that specific cost center will still be under.
Any other questions? For the next portion of budget, we do need a motion for disposal of assets.
I move to approve disposing of school assets as presented.
Chris Matera, second.
All right, with the first and second, Harrison, could you explain?
All right, we'll do this really quick. You're gonna see this form much more frequently than what the district has done in the past. This is a proper disposal form that most school districts should be engaging in. I can't say that many do a disposal of asset for every single item, right? Some items are considered immaterial, so you don't really want to bog the committee down with applying a vote to it. However, Sutton historically, before my time, rarely did an asset disposal, right? So taxpayer funds get these assets. Your elected officials, you should be in charge of telling the district whether or not you deem throwing something out appropriate or trying to find some type of salvage value. So the sheet in front of you is a large list primarily of textbooks from the middle school, high school, and 2 vehicles that the district uses for special ed transportation. The 2 vehicles are Van 2 and Van 3. Both are 70 Toyota Sienna minivans. Both are colored white. Both were produced within this almost a 1-month span from the manufacturer. They're 2015s. They have about 226,000 miles on them, so I'd say they've served the district well. As you all recall, in the capital plan, we did replace those vehicles already. Those vehicles' titles are in hand, registrations are up to date, 70 packages are installed. But it's time to dispose of these 2 vans. Kelly Blue Books indicates we'll probably get about $4,000 for each of them. One of the vans has a dead battery, so I can't confirm what the mileage actually is on it until facilities can jump it or buy a replacement battery. But they'll be put on Municipid. I've already contacted the town hall. They'll be advertising for that, and we'll have the bidding start at a reasonable dollar amount. And once we get those funds for each vehicle, they'll be turned back over to the district and deposited into the special ed transportation revolving account for future expenses.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Let's take it to a vote for the disposal of assets. Let's start with Chris.
Sure. Chris Matera, aye.
Darling, aye.
Kozachka, aye.
Reed Erickson, aye.
Royce, aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. All right, moving on to facilities and operations update.
Yes, so Dave was kind enough to provide a facilities update that was in the folder that I shared with all of you earlier today. Can quickly go through these. So we were able to replace and put new tires on the front of the Gator. Those have been installed. 2 of our floor machines that are used to clean the floors, they are currently out for refurbishing, and we have one that we've purchased that's on its way. And Dave was also able to do an extensive repair to one himself with salvage parts, so we didn't have to send it out. We have hired a custodian, so we are currently fully staffed in our custodial department. We are currently putting new brakes and tires on the school truck. We want to make sure that that gets done before winter season approaches. The oil tank vent relocation project is now complete, as are the girls' softball dugouts. Automated Logic is well underway gathering the necessary information to continue the engineering process for the HVAC upgrade at the middle school and the high school. Now this comes out of capital funding. And it is currently on Delta control. So we are trying to get all of our systems onto the same system. So right now, the elementary school and the Simonian Center operate with Automated Logic, and the middle school and the high school operate with Delta. So we are just looking to make sure everyone's on Automated Logic, and again, the funding source for that is in the capital plan. ACU 1 and 2 have both been repaired in the ELC. This was one of the major repairs that we planned on doing in our efforts to get the HVAC system running better and more efficiently. Now that we have made progress on some of the larger HVAC repairs, he will begin to address the exhaust vents that are on the 2nd floor of the elementary school. He will be investigating each one individually, and he will be repairing them himself, unless it is found to not be possible. The wastewater treatment upgrades are nearly complete. We had a custom-made membrane that arrived last week, and it will be installed in the next week or so. The interceptor trench, so this is a trench that is outside near the high school parking lot and the wastewater treatment plant. We had a question from the DEP as to whether or not this even existed, so we did do some research and were able to find the trench. And it's now being monitored and sampled by Whitewater on a consistent basis, which wasn't happening before. Upon each inspection, there has been no water to sample, which is a good thing. And the DEP was okay with this plan going forward because there were some questions surrounding whether or not we could continue to operate the wastewater treatment plant the way that it had been operating. But we found the trench, so we are good to go for the time being. Solar repair quotes are in the works. We will be applying for a grant in collaboration with Jen Hager here at Town Hall to cover a percentage of those costs. So that will be to replace the solar, not the panels, but the system over at the elementary school. And we also need to replace all of the cinder blocks that they are currently situated on. And we've been working with John Kuchar to establish a plan and put a plan in place for how we'll monitor that until the replacement and hopefully of the summer of 2026. The elementary chiller is now under a maintenance contract. That is something that Harrison worked to secure for us. It is a big asset of ours, so we need to make sure that we're taking care of it properly. We were able to extend out a year the draining and inspection of our water storage tank. Again, this is something that seems to have fallen by the wayside. It hasn't been inspected in many, many years. We will need to build into capital approximately $15,000 to drain, inspect, clean, and refill with outside water. So we will work with the town during capital planning season this year to do that. Ideally, this will also be done next summer when the solar blocks are being replaced, because there will be a period of time where we'll have to have water offline. Most insurance claims regarding the lightning strike have been completed at this time. It was discovered that an additional claim was going to be, or an additional repair was going to be attached to the claim. The ELC also had a unit that turned out to be affected as well. So the claim money has gone up, and we are still working with that. It is nowhere near closed, but we're still investigating with MPC to see if there's any other things that may have been damaged from that lightning strike. And then lastly, facilities work to remove a lot of overhead tree limbs so that we could have increased bus clearance on all of our entrances on campus. One of the big ones you'll see is if you come in the back of the high school, that lot there, the guys worked incredibly hard to take down all of the brush that was there, because if you were taking a left out of the high school parking lot in the back, it was really hard to see if people were coming down from the right. So thank you to them for taking care of that. I think that is it from Dave. Any questions?
It's great news that that trench was located for our water treatment plant. The alternative was not.
Yeah.
We had like a little search party out there, we're walking around.
It was found. That's all that matters.
Yes, absolutely.
So who monitors that?
Whitewater.
Whitewater.
Yep, and then
Okay.
DEP gives you a permit to operate, and that permit is every 5 years. So when they came here this year to renew the permit, they questioned where the trench was, and we weren't
I was like, where's
necessarily
Waldo,
sure.
right?
If we
It
hadn't
looked
found the
like in
trench.
the buildable plans for the lot, we saw it,
Yeah.
but we had to confirm that it was actually
If we
there,
hadn't
because they
found-
did do work to the high school parking lot at some point in time, and there were concerns that it could have possibly been dug up during the high school building project. But it is there and it is working.
If it hadn't been found, though.
If it hadn't been found, there would have had to have been some pretty significant discussions at a town level to put the school on town
Picture
sewer.
like a pirate's treasure map. We marked a giant red X where the trench is, so we're not gonna lose it this time.
And so 5 years from now, we'll see what happens, but we're good for 5 years.
We're good for 5 years.
Good.
We'll continue to work with DEP. Dan Durgan and Dave Richard have both had an open line of communication with them throughout this whole process, because we are only one of 5, I believe, districts in the state that have something like this. And it was attached to proposed regulations that were supposed to be approved, that were never approved at a state level. So the DEP has been very gracious enough to work with us on this in the meantime.
Lucky us.
So 5 districts that have a wastewater treatment plant?
It's either 5 or
Private.
7.
Some of them
that-
are private
Private, yeah.
schools.
Yep.
Okay.
I think
Not
the
many.
Fay
Right, and-
School in Southborough was one of the identified schools.
And on the solar repairs, we're looking at I forget the grant. It's like a community green energy grant.
Green Energy Communities grant, yep, and so Jen's working on that. And if we weren't to be successful in obtaining the grant, it is something that we would build into the
Town
cap,
article.
the town article, yeah.
But we'll have to
This
fund, it's covering all of it or half?
Depends.
Okay.
But the project is looking to be over $170,000
I think
at this point in
the
time.
latest quote that I saw was like 188.
Yeah, keeps
Okay.
going up.
I mean,
Sure.
the district put next to $0 into maintaining the system from 2011 to present.
I've seen the pictures, yeah.
So we are working on it, and we have a safety plan in place with John Kuchar and our facility staff to make sure that we're monitoring it until we can get all of that replaced and fixed.
All right. Moving on to our superintendent's report, and we have a guest here tonight for the new superintendent induction program.
Yes, so if it's all right with all of you, Marco Rodriguez, he is here. He is my coach from the new superintendent induction program. So he's going to come up and explain to you kind of what it is and what he's going to be doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Marco Rodriguez. I'm coach for NISIP, and NISIP stands for New Superintendent Induction Program. The program has been in operation for 16 years, so she is in cohort 16. So, and we have 27 new first-year superintendents this year. This is a 3-year induction program and includes expert coaching from retired Massachusetts superintendents like myself. The program is a collaboration between the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Massachusetts Associations of School Superintendents. And it focuses on superintendents working through school principals and others to advance, improve academic and social-emotional outcomes for all students. That's the purpose of our program. It also includes a robust schedule of content days, which introduce the new superintendents to replicable best practices, offer multiple opportunities for them to deep collaboration among peers. And the goal is really to sharpen their focus on teaching and learning and to become a better instructional leader. During the first year, we focus on the work of the superintendent, which you would probably see her here tonight, introducing to you an entry plan. And developing an entry plan, then reporting to you the entry findings. And then after that, work with her team and introduce a strategy for district improvement. So our job as coaches is to support the process for the superintendents. In addition to content days, I'll be doing site visits, and I'll be conducting walkthroughs with the superintendent and the principals and seeing your classroom. So I really look forward to coming in and experiencing the Sutton School District. And I have 6 other superintendents that I coach, so it'll be very interesting to see how all the schools operate. And I was paying attention to everything that was happening here today. I think you have a great system, and I'm looking forward to actually experiencing the classroom environment. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
You said it was 3 years?
Is that 3-year? Yes.
3.
So year 1 is the entry plan, the report, and the strategic, the developing a strategy. Year 2 is the implementation of the new district improvement plan, as Superintendent Page was indicating that you are sunsetting the 3-year one, and by next year you'll have a new one in place for your approval and execution. And then year 3 is more a consultancy. It's less content days. So the first year is more content days. The second year is a little less, and the third year is consultancy among superintendents. It's more done more regionally. So we group superintendents. Excuse me. We group superintendents regionally, geographically, so they can have consultancy opportunities maybe 4 times a year.
How much of it deals with because the interaction with town officials, like do you kind of feel that you stop at the end of the school site, and that the strategic planning is really only school focused, or are you also available to discuss how the school liaisons with the town, or is that outside the scope?
I don't know
Scoping question.
I don't know if I
Fully, yeah.
understand your question. Yeah.
So obviously, strategic planning
Yes.
can be very based just on what are we doing within the district, within the school. But a piece of that is, okay, but how is that school being funded by the town? And so what is
I
the
see.
interactions with the town boards, the town officials? So
It's all inclusive. So my support to her will be looking holistically what her needs are in terms of the health and wealth of relationships in a community with town officials and others, and support her in any way. Mass Association of School Superintendents are very in tune with the Mass Association of School Committees to actually support and to, a parent earlier talking about strategically how to support up in the state on how to
Got it.
improve. Those mechanisms are in place right now, and it's a partnership of all these associations that work together to the benefit of supporting a first-year superintendent, but also looking, forward years to come, how to best support the integration of funding and the relationship with towns, because that's an important piece, because you are a department of the town, so that has a lot of relevance there too.
I guess, are there any others in the Blackstone Valley that are new?
Not
Uh,
the Blackstone Valley.
N-
So
no,
I've
no.
been paired with Munson.
Yes, so
Sorry.
well, you're paired with Munson because you're
I
part of
know, I
my
know.
team.
Geographically,
No,
that's
no,
all. I know
geographically,
I don't
nothing
think we
about
have
Munson.
anybody close enough.
Hopkinton
Yes.
is close, so there is a brand new superintendent in Hopkinton.
Yes.
He's relatively close, and I've spoken with him a few times, but no one in the direct Blackstone Valley
Blackstone,
at the moment.
correct, yes.
I assume these are all relatively similarly sized districts that are in your cohort, or?
So when I have my table
Hopkins is
group, one
huge,
of
yeah.
the districts there is Beverly, which is
It's huge.
Yeah.
huge.
No, I have, I have Fall River, I have Leominster, I have Monson,
Okay.
Sutton, I have Gateway Regional, which is beyond Springfield in Huntington. So there are a variety of districts and sizes and regional single districts. So all that is in the mix. But the being together at our content days allows them to just listen and hear all the issues that are so pertinent. That is very rich for the first year superintendents to be part of.
Wonderful. Hopkinton, and then Boylston, West Boylston as
West
well.
Boylston, yeah.
is semi-close, and they have
That's
a brand
right,
new
yes.
superintendent
A little
as
bit more
well.
so.
Yep.
Size. Other questions?
And I know it was in there, so I apologize. Where were you superintendent?
So I finished my career in Hudson. I was in Hudson for 6 years, and prior to that, I was in Worcester for 26 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow. And how long have you been coaching then?
This is my second year.
Okay.
Yes. I retired in 23.
But not really retired.
Yeah, sounds like you're busy.
Busy, but a good busy,
Yeah.
not busy having the responsibility of the school district. Hate to say it.
And Marco has been wonderful, and he's been around. He started coming to Sutton in February,
Yes, true.
which was lovely. They paired me with him early when they realized I was going to be here, whereas most other new superintendents didn't start with their coaches until
July 1st.
July.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
So
That is
he's been a
correct.
great asset so far.
happy to be here.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
So as he referenced, in the superintendent newsletter today, the entry plan that I had also talked to you about at school committee retreat in July was sent out. So this is just a summary of what that first year is going to look like. And in the cover letter that went out, and it's also, like I said, in the superintendent update that went out to members of the community today, is that I am in a bit of a unique situation, definitely in my cohort of 27 other superintendents, where I was the interim last year, and now I'm going into year 2, but we're really treating this year as the fresh start, where I can start to dive into this really important work that we were unable to get to last year, quite frankly. So if you look in the superintendent entry plan that I attached and is in the school committee packet, there's 3 phases or steps. So step 1 is the phase that I am currently in, and this is the data collection time. So the timeline for this is July 2025 through December 2025, and the real focus is on listening and learning. It's time for me to build relationships and to deepen my understanding of Sutton Public Schools and why we're so unique, what our challenges are and what our strengths are. In order to do this, I'm going to hold listening and learning sessions. So these will be one-on-one meetings, these will be group forums, school visits, classroom observations, as well as community agency visits. And I look forward to connecting with not just staff and students and caregivers, but also community members. What are people at the senior center concerned about when it comes to the schools? What are people that are coming into the center store to grab a sandwich concerned about? So hosting meet and greets in those areas where they can come and just express what they love about Sutton and what they may want to see be a bit different. There will also be a community engagement piece where I will collaborate with our new town manager and department heads to attend local meetings and visit various community organizations. So I have been working with the new town manager. I will be attending all of his monthly department head meetings with all of the town departments, just so that I am clued into what they are doing. And then the next piece will be a document review. So there are a bunch of documents listed there. They're quite extensive, and many of these documents I have already interacted with thoroughly over my past 2 years in the district. But it's important to revisit those documents now with a new lens, a pre-K to 12 lens, not just an elementary lens. So I'm not gonna go through all of those documents, but they're just key documents that highlight our district, our policies, our practices, and our instruction, and what I can gain from that information, as well as our testing scores, our MCAS scores, what trends are we seeing, and then I think we, at the last meeting, had a pretty thorough discussion on enrollment. That's another thing that I really want to dive into during this listening and learning phase. And then the final piece of this phase 1 will be to complete and send out a stakeholder survey. So I will send out an online survey, kind of similar to the budget survey that we sent out to the community this year. And the purpose of this survey will be to deepen or clarify or validate any findings that I've already kind of come to during the interviews, meetings, and document reviews. So like I said, that was phase 1 from now until December. And I will make sure that the dates of all of those meetings are publicized. They'll be in person, and there'll also be Google Meet and or Zoom options as well, so it's accessible to everyone. Step 2 is identifying themes and presenting findings. So I will have a report of findings that I create. This is what I have learned about Sutton. And I will present that to the school committee at a school committee meeting. That meeting will be in sometime in February or March around budget season, wherever we can fit it in. And I hope to summarize key insights. I hope to highlight our strengths and also our areas of growth. And identify opportunities for development and improvement, and then outline any potential next steps. So again, this will be presented at a school committee meeting, and similar to the entry plan that was sent out to the community today, the results of that report of findings will be sent out to the community as well. And I think it's really important that this is what I see and what I've learned during this time. And then step 3 is the planning and implementation phase from March until August of 2026. So this is when, following the presentation of findings, the district leadership team and I, so the district leadership team is comprised of all of our building-based administrators, both principals and assistant principals, our business manager, our director of facilities, and our director of technology and operations, as well as our special education director. We will sit down and look at that report of findings, and together we will co-develop and draft a 3-year district strategic plan. And this will align with the needs of our current pre-K to 12 student population. We will then bring that plan to school committee for input. And then we hope by the fall to have an approved district strategic plan, a 3-year plan that we can then draft our school improvement plans to coincide with, and then we can develop a 3-year PD plan, because we have to be able to say what opportunities are we giving to our staff in order to meet the goals within these plans. The ultimate goal is to enhance the educational experience here for every student in Sutton, and I want the work to be purposeful, I want the work to be data-driven, and I want it to be ultimately responsive to to all of the voices in our school community.
So it says March to August.
Mhm.
So when, we talked before about when the school improvement plans and all that should be. So I guess what is the goal?
Typically, your school improvement plans are drafted in the spring.
Okay.
Our hope is that this work is done sooner rather than later in the spring, but it would need to be approved by the committee. So when we get it done, we would bring it to you for input, and then if we were to go back, because there was additional information that the committee may want to be within that district strategic plan, it's all gonna depend on meeting schedule, to be quite frank. So if next year our school improvement plan does need to get pushed to that first meeting in August or September, we could do that, but we're looking for those school improvement plans to be at least a 2-year plan.
And we want the PD
And we want the
there.
PD attached
Yeah.
to not only the school improvement plan, but also to the district strategic plan.
Right.
So it's a lot of things in motion, but I'm confident that our district leadership team will be able to get it done.
Awesome.
On your stakeholder survey, can I just clarify for my own understanding?
Yep.
When you say stakeholders, I'm assuming that's not only parents, but that's community members,
Community
that's
members, yep.
seniors,
People
so.
at town hall, senior center, anyone that wants to. I'll work with Chris and Pam at the town hall to get that out on the Facebook page so that everyone can see it, and we'll make sure that everyone has the opportunity.
Yeah.
Budget one went out
And we
to-
did do that for the
yeah.
budget
Yeah.
survey as well.
And I know the housing, they sent like postcards and stuff, so that might be another valid option.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yep, it's for everyone to fill out.
So are those gonna be tailored specifically to different stakeholder groups, or are they gonna be the
So
same
the
surveys
survey
going
will
out?
really come to fruition based on what I learned between now and December, because the survey is gonna be that final piece. So it might be to clarify certain things that I'm hearing a lot of, it might be to validate certain things that I'm hearing a lot of, or I really can't speak to it until I
Sure.
really am into the work and know what I'm seeing. Any more questions?
This is great.
And then I just have a few quick things that were in the bottom of the superintendent report that I had shared earlier. So staffing open positions. So we have a 1-year special education teacher that is still unstaffed. It has been posted since July 24th. So the next steps for this position may be that we have to work with a contractor to fill that position. So we are gonna keep it posted throughout this week and then go from there. It's a bit more expensive to work with a contractor, but
Have you
like
had
I said, it's been posted since July 24th and we've had 4 applicants.
Anybody that you brought in to interview, or nobody?
And so how is the preschool functioning?
So it's for kindergarten and first
Oh.
grade special education
Oh,
services.
sorry,
So
I
right now
thought I
they're
heard
just,
pre-K.
there is like a contingency plan in place to deliver some of those services, but
Oh, okay.
eventually, if we're unable to fill the position, the district would be on the hook for compensatory services. So if they go more than 10 days without the services, then we're on the hook for those.
And when you say contractor, do you mean like a
Yeah,
like a
like
professional
working through an
headhunter? Yeah,
agency,
okay.
Yeah, to find someone. So if anyone knows a special education teacher, we would love to have them. We also have 4 instructional assistant openings at the Simonian Center and elementary school. I'm happy to report that we have 2 hires in the pipeline, so that should go down to 2 within the next few weeks. They're just going through the Corey process and the fingerprinting process, but they have accepted the position. So that would bring that down to 2. And we do have 2 additional instructional assistant openings at the high school and the middle school as well. They're
Is that
actively-
unusual at the elementary level to have those sorts of
I
openings?
think my first year here, we had 8 around this time.
I think we started the year with 10.
Yeah.
So we're doing better.
So the instructional, we were down to 1 at the high school, middle school, but we received a resignation today for someone, so it's 2 now. We will continue to post them on School Spring. We will continue to interview as we receive applicants, but that does have it does cause a significant strain on the workings of each of those buildings. Enrollment, so I just wanted to touch on, I think I've spoken with the majority of you that we decided to move forward. I believe you decided, not we, to move forward with having an enrollment working group, not a subcommittee per se. And the reason behind this was we want to be able to include staff and students and community partners and parents that may have some expertise in that field, and we want them to be able to dive into the work with us. And that also means that 2 school committee members could attend each session. I just can't have more than 2 of you there, and it would be under my purview, so you wouldn't be in charge of that committee. It would be the superintendent's working group on enrollment. And I did forward all of you PDFs of our student enrollment numbers from 2015 to 2025 for you to look at. And I did also wanted to follow up that when we looked at the numbers, Pat, where there was that discrepancy between what you were seeing on the
Right,
DESI
it was
website,
50
it was
some odd
because
count.
they don't take into account kids that are enrolling in private schools because there's no financial impact for the state. So anyone that goes to any sort of private school is not
In those numbers.
on the DESI
Yeah.
numbers.
And can I ask about Radar,
Mm-hmm.
which is also a collection repository that was provided in previous budget
Yep.
documentation? How does that interact with the data that you were providing? Like, is that just another source?
And it's also far behind. The issue with Radar is I think it's only reporting up to 2022 right now.
That's right.
So anything
Yeah.
from 2022 beyond, we don't have in Radar.
It's a state,
Which is
because
wild.
it's state collection.
It is
it's
wild,
just,
yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
You have to
Okay.
remember too, that some of the financial data that the state and DESI uploads, right, it is delayed because it has to go through an audit, process, right? So, you know, right now, the month of September, we're filing the end of year financial report for FY '25, right? So we'll upload it by the end of September. DESI will then review it, make sure all districts in the state have it uploaded, and then come January timeframe, most towns will start their single audit process, and by default, the school's financial audit, and those will conclude with an engagement letter, usually around May or June, right? And then you'll upload that to the federal clearinghouse, and then FY '25 is quote unquote officially complete from a data perspective, right? So not until next June will last school year even be complete to analyze, right? The state doesn't want to upload something that's not audited in case there is a mistake in any district's data.
But in terms of us trying to compare either similarly situated towns and/or neighbors, the data that's coming, that older data, if you will, is more,
It's more vetted,
Yes.
good term.
but it's not to say that, you know, myself or Caitlin's not engaging with other superintendents and business managers to get real-time data as well. There's a lot of surveys and Google Sheets that are shared between administration where we'll upload financial information and student information just so we have real-time data to go off of as well.
And the only other two things were the PD calendar is linked there, and I think this goes back to our conversation of school improvement plans, is we're really trying to fill out that high school and middle school PD schedule. I'm working with administration to do that. They're working with their department heads and team leaders to hear from them about like what quick hit PD opportunities can we provide for you this year, knowing that we're not going to put something in place that would span over the next 3 years because we just don't know what our goals are going to be. But I can assure you we are working to get that in line. And we were able to train, I had mentioned at our August meeting that we needed to train some of our staff in safety care, which is our de-escalation strategies that we use. So all of our staff that work in intensive rooms that had expiring de-escalation training volunteered and came, well, didn't volunteer, we paid them, but volunteered a day in their summer to come in and get trained before school started. And we've already identified 4 possible dates in September to train all of our new staff that need to immediately be trained, and we will release them to do that. And then the other thing is the newsletter went out today, so the newsletter, just as a reminder for everyone, it goes out on the first school committee meeting of the month. It will include some sort of superintendent update. Today, that update centered around the entry plan. This one may appear very, very long, and it is, but we had lots of information to give you. There are updates from the Simonian Center and Elementary School, from the middle school and the high school, as well as some important updates from our special education department, our technology department, food services, as well as our Sutton Extension program. So I encourage all of our families out there to at least skim through it because there's a lot of information in there that was pretty important. And that is it for me.
All right. So next, moving on to goals review, and we're going to talk about our school committee goals. I don't know about the new members, but when I went to go look back and look on our website, our school committee website for our goals, I couldn't find them. So getting them in a visible place online for everyone to be able to see would absolutely be one of them. Revisiting last year's goals, they included better identification and more readily available communication with school committee members. I think that was our, on our website, being able to People can fill out a form, it's a Google form, it comes to the chair, which now I am receiving those, and I share to the committee. Let's see. Additional areas of focus included identification of facility and safety needs as a district, and then as well as efficient management of the district's budget. I know you kind of had some discussion at the last meeting, and I think that was a great recommendation brought forward tonight. But I don't know if anyone has any ideas or input. This will be something we'll continue to have discussion about, but if anyone has any goals that they want to recommend, or we can continue to have, I know our tri-board meeting was one that we were going to focus on.
Yes. So at the last meeting, I just trying to get the verbiage.
Yeah, it goes.
Data-driven decisions, and rationale provided. So that was we the enrollment piece. I'm trying to remember if we had were there any other, or just, you would just, Jill we wanted more data, like.
Yeah, we wanted to have, I don't know how we want to word this, but more
I think
data.
whenever we make a policy or a financial decision, we just need to make sure we're really backing it up with facts. I think that was kind of.
I don't know how we want to word this one, but I do
Yeah.
think it goes in hand with enrollment too, in that enrollment, review of the enrollment, and looking at the schedules and how many class sizes, and really taking a thoughtful look at the school and making sure that our budget reflects
the data.
the needs of students by building.
Hannah, wordsmith that.
Informed budgetary decision-making.
Informed, data-driven.
Budgetary decision making. You could throw that in ChatGPT.
Okay.
Informed
Use it,
budgetary.
use it.
I was just joking.
All right,
We'll have the committee look into that.
That's right.
all right, informed budgetary, data-driven.
I guess, does that tie in the other, collaboration? The next one said reflective and transparent budget development. Or is that more?
I think that kind of goes in hand with our tri-board.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a sub bullet, really.
Okay.
I think.
Well, I think we need to have some main goals and maybe some
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah, I mean, the tri-board one comes under, what is it, consistent consultation and collaboration.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And based on the comment that came up at public forum, that could also be an a committee goal to say, why don't we try to liaison with some of counterparts, school committee members? I think the MASC would for sure help facilitate that, right?
So, was it whenever I went to the conference the last time, I met some local, or I know people on Douglas and Grafton, and just my own personal, I always ask, what do you do for school? I mean, everything's available anyway, but, just checking in with how they format things or how they, but yeah, I mean, I love reaching out to others.
It just seems like under the umbrella of consistent consultation and collaboration, you could, with the town, fellow boards, just make, tri-board falls under that, our ability to be talking with other school committees, to be reaching out. It just seems like that could be a goal that we would all take on personally, but collectively as a.
Where does that whole concept of self-evaluation fall under? Because I actually really liked that in the public comment about, how are we doing, right?
Yeah.
Self-evaluation, input from the community. I guess I'm wondering if there is any guidance, like the superintendent evaluation has guidance from MASC, or SS, whatever the appropriate. I wonder if there is any protocols through MASC on
Doing a committee self-evaluation of sorts.
We could have Di reach out for you and ask.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great idea to add to that.
What was I'm sorry, what was the several goals from last year? Again, one was communication.
Yeah, it was pretty, hold on, let me go back to it.
They're pretty generic.
They were pretty general.
Improve-
Overhauling the website.
Improve the
that-
website, yeah, it was like
Right.
weird.
Better identification and more readily available communication with school committee members.
Safety.
That was the use of the
Safety of,
form.
and
Safety and
facilities.
facility as a district, as well as efficient management of the district's budget.
So were they met?
Well, we never did an evaluation, so we never
There were no.
There was no data to back it
real-
up.
They had no real
The
benchmarks.
There was
school's still
no-
standing,
Yeah.
we
Right.
have a
General
budget.
and.
Buildings are
Well,
safe.
and I
We touched on it, but there was
I mean, I
no-
guess I'm just asking because, you know, is there more meat on the bone with anything on there? You know, safety, policy.
Safety was kind of ongoing, but I feel like that's.
No, we discussed that one was from a while ago, right?
Yeah, the district had that goal up for a very long time, and for instance, the committee flagged the band doors, right? The band doors were unsafe, rusted through, created a security vulnerable area, so the district put it in the capital plan, sent it out to bid, had the facade of the building redone, new badge system attached to it, so, you know, in
Seems like a-
essence, check, right? You did a part of it.
It seems like a very goal.
We had
right?
the grant with Senator Fatman, which helped improve surveillance of the district and police response gear. So there were a number of different areas that all support that one goal.
So do we really need that as a goal
No,
anymore?
we had talked about
Yeah.
taking
I think
that
we
out.
could take that one
I think we should take it
as
out.
a goal.
I was about to say, just not to, I mean, maybe I'm coming from the private sector, but, you know, large businesses run very, very slowly. And if you can just incrementally move in the right direction, you should pat yourself on the back. And I think a lot of these goals are ones that were there for very probably historical reasons, but it took a while. The band doors is a great example. How long did that take? Nothing is like this, right? And so it's just, you know, those were all done well, they were met, but I think as a committee, we kind of say, that doesn't need to be the focus now, instead, here is some of the pieces we're interested in,
I agree.
but not to.
So we can continue.
Well, all right, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate, but I mean, so is it just because it's been out there for so long, or do we have tangible, you know, measurements in there? I mean, external audits, for example, related to safety.
We've had.
We did have a security assessment
We did.
done. Dan Durgan and I met with them last year. It was a private company, someone based in Sutton. I can get that information for you. And we've been working, now we are in the situation where we have a brand new police chief. We have a new school resource officer, so I know that one of our district goals, not necessarily a committee goal, is that we're working on safety planning, and we're kind of going back and starting from scratch to make sure that we have everything that we need in place to move everyone forward
So,
together.
but it just seems like a very obvious thing. Like, of course, safety is a.
I mean, I guess
I
it
don't know.
does, but I mean, it's the obvious stuff that nobody's thinking about because it's so obvious, and when, you know, it's not nobody's thinking about it, I guess, but it's, you know, when it becomes routine and you're not.
Right.
If I had to guess, I'm almost certain real world events probably shaped past committees' decisions, right? 2012, district laid off a wide variety of, staff members throughout the district, so they probably incorporated budget to be a goal every year to review because they didn't want to get back in that spot. Safety with school districts in the country as a whole probably triggered the committee to want to have that as a goal.
To your point, though, what training has been done at the grade levels, or what building-based training?
Not much. So one of the conversations that we've had with Lieutenant Sullivan, who is the SRO, and with Chief, is that we need to decide what we're doing, how we're doing it. Is it gonna be consistent pre-K to 12? Because that hasn't necessarily been the case.
So I know there were more trainings and more drills, but it was focused at the middle and
and
high school.
So the middle school and the high school last year did successfully complete a reunification drill with 50 students, so it was one bus of students. But I can tell you that the elementary school has really been stalled at the lockdown piece, and they have not advanced past that. So
can I ask why? Because as a parent, it seems
Yep.
like, boy, you're doing a lot of those. Does that
Right.
mean it's not going well? And, oh,
So I think we're not moving on until we have 100% that if I come around and
Yeah.
I'm jiggling doors with the administration and the SRO and there's a door open, were we successful? And so we've been reteaching all of those practices. I will say that Lieutenant Sullivan did go to all of, I know she went to the elementary school and has had conversations with the middle school and high school, and it's been great having her presence here every single day. She is in the building, in the high school office, Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, at drop-off, at pickup, and is working with administrators hand in hand to do this. So we'll be having our first safety meeting of the year where we bring in Chief Belcito and Chief Caloro and everyone so that we can start to plan a path forward, because there's also some differences in opinion as to what program we are using for an active shooter, for example. Some teachers were trained with ALICE training, some were not. So what exactly are we using and what is our messaging going to be? And it needs to be consistent, and I can tell you right now it's not.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of newer staff that were not trained in the ALICE and haven't had really any training probably. Yep.
So I guess if I can share, personal anecdote, let me preface this by saying, preschool started last week, and you and your team have done a phenomenal job. This is my daughter's first year in preschool, and just, the level of organization and with Ms. Bashon and her team, everybody's been phenomenal. I did actually specifically have a question about the school resource officer and how we utilize that individual specifically with pickups at the end of the day. And it may have been a different portion of the school I didn't necessarily observe, and I may have missed, but I guess, general question is the school resource officer, on site at the elementary school during when the children are being released?
Yes.
And, is there opportunity for additional, if, again, I'm speaking from the personal experience, and it seemed, again, if I can use the word routine, right, in terms of how pickup actually happens. And so,
She's there, so where she has parked the first, it's day 7 now, is she's in the corner, which is shielded by the buses. And the reason she's there is that we did have some eager parents, and even maybe some eager staff members that were trying to get out of the parking lot while we're still actively loading buses and having 400 children walk around that loop in the elementary school. So that's where she's been for those days. But she has been there, but we can certainly have her shift over a little bit more to the parent pickup side,
and
because
I'm not looking for anything, it was a question
Yeah.
about just presence.
Yes.
On site and, potential vulnerability points, right? You have a lot of parents entering into the school, there's a lot of children, and so.
Absolutely. So she is there. She is only one person.
Sure.
We did have High Five Fridays last year that the police department started, where one Friday a month they were sending everyone. Chief came down and the lieutenants came down and whoever was on patrol came down, and they were there to greet the kids when they came into school, which was a really exciting time. I think one of the issues we see is that she hasn't necessarily been pulled yet, but they are also down, I believe, 2 police officers right now at the police station. So if someone's ever going to get pulled, it most likely is going to be her. But that has not happened yet. But I do know that they do have a staffing shortage there, which may, and I hope it doesn't because it's been wonderful having her consistently, impact her ability. But in conversations that Chief and I have, he has committed to her being here consistently, and even offered himself in her place if she's unable to be there. If you watched Inside the Town Hall, that's what he
Yes.
said.
We did.
Yeah,
And,
we did. It was great.
and that's a huge change, because 10 plus years in the district, and I think maybe there were 2 years where we had a full-time SRO. And then it was always committed saying, we're trying, but it was staffing.
And we really pushed Chief on this issue last year, and he wants to partner with us, and he sees the value of the school resource officer, so.
I was gonna say, he came to one of the parent council, like, the Sutton SES council, SCEL, SES, and he was very upfront right off the bat saying this was a goal of his too. So I applaud his department and him taking the resources, because we know it takes
whole body.
Yep, and she's able to be in all of our SAM meetings and our SST meetings because that's information that she can partner with families on to help them outside of school as well. So she's been wonderful. We have been very lucky to have her, and we appreciate Chief allocating her to us in the manner that he has. And we are gonna have in December, so Dan Durgan is leading the safety planning from the school side. He's kind of the point of contact that schedules all of the meetings and brings everyone in because he works not only for the school but for the town. And he is scheduled to come to a school committee meeting in December to present on safety and where we're at then.
To put, yeah,
So it sounds like maybe we
Safety,
do wanna
yeah.
keep, maybe
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
the facilities part out.
and the website
or-
one, because I
And the
think the
website.
website changed.
Yeah.
But it sounds like budget needs to stay on there.
Safety.
It's almost we're putting our own individual spin on it, right? Budget's still there, but we're gonna have data-driven
Yep.
pieces. Maybe we're adding the collaboration, safety stays,
Website.
because it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need
The
that one.
form, adding the form is a good way of,
Yep.
but I liked your idea, Jill, also just make sure these goals are on.
Visible?
Visible and
Visible,
easily
I have to go back
found.
to agenda meeting notes from last year if I
Yeah,
actually
I bet you
find out.
Di could just add
Yep.
a green section called
Goals.
committee.
She can
committee
do
goals.
that.
I like it.
All right, so we'll continue to finalize these. It sounds like we're
And the
gonna
self-assessment.
clean it up. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
dive
Yeah, and
in.
I'll have Di reach
Yeah.
out to Mask about that information to see if Tracy can come back out or if she can provide resources for all of you.
So will there be a proposed draft? I mean, will you
I think we'll-
and
yeah, I
Caitlin
think-
work on sort of a proposed draft for those
Post draft and we'll
goals?
send out.
Or,
That makes sense.
Of the goals or of the self-evaluation?
School
no,
committee-
just
school
ask about the
committee
goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
who's gonna work
I
on,
think we'll
you know,
draft.
and maybe it should be two of us to kind of work on the draft goals and present
Yeah.
at the next meeting.
Great idea. You volunteering?
I'm happy to work with you on it.
All right. All right. Yes, that's a good idea. We'll draft it. We'll present it at the next meeting, then we can vote on it.
Yes, because mine will be presented at the next meeting too, so I sent the draft to the whole district leadership team of my 4 goals, and then I sent them tonight to Jill and to Pat, who are on the superintendent evaluation subcommittee. So the 3 of us will meet to go over those in September, and then hopefully we bring those to the full committee for approval at that October 6th meeting, so we could do both.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Sound good?
And just a reminder that once it's on the agenda, that means it's open for public comment during public
Yep.
forum. So the draft will be within the packet. People can then comment
Yep.
on the draft.
Yep.
One last question about our schedule. So I know we have kind of placeholders, right? We have 2 placeholders per month, with the second being as needed.
Yeah.
And I'd maybe share this with you, you know, does it make sense for us to be having the school committee meetings at the first of the 2? Seeing as how we're having various committee meetings and that, yeah, I'm just thinking lead time, right? Like report out if you're having, you know, depending on what the schedule is, but if we have budget, if there's, you know, the contract negotiations and other meetings that are happening leading up to the school committee meeting, then you can have your reports out at the school committee meeting. I guess it's just a different, you know, or you're just having them done at the next meeting in the first month. But I figured I'd just kind of bring it up.
least
Does this schedule make sense?
At least from the budget subcommittee perspective, right, when, at least how I'm envisioning my involvement, right, you want informed data-driven decisions. I reconcile the books for month end, right? The town hall usually posts entries to Munis on the first or second business day of the month, right? So you want to make sure there's enough time after that posting to allow myself to make sure the entries are in there, it's reconciled, it's matching, and then I verify and supply a report so that we have the data to go off of for the subcommittee meeting. So that's the only thing that I'd like to be kept in mind for at least the budget subcommittee meeting, is there has to be enough time after month end close for the report to be reviewed and executed, and then.
So that sounds like more of the later meeting then.
Right,
Well,
so.
well, I think you're talking about specifically the budget, which we have this Friday, I
Yeah.
think, on the 12th, right?
So what I would say is this Friday, if you had specific data questions about where the current year's budget is, it's going to be data from month end of September, right? I'm not or month end of August.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not gonna include September data, cause the
No,
month's not
understood. Yeah.
reconciled.
But I guess, is that 2-week window sufficient for you to?
That's gonna be sufficient.
Okay.
I mean, this is an anomaly because we don't have a town accountant
Yeah.
for this meeting, but moving forward, that's how I would envision it working.
Sounds-
And I don't think there's probably many other subcommittees that really have like data reporting timelines that coincide with the subcommittee meeting.
The enrollment working group, though, once that kicks up, I imagine would have data needs.
Well, again, it's just a matter of
Yeah.
us meeting in a more timely fashion after those subcommittee meetings, right? So it's what, the 8th today, and so in a normal month, when would your last subcommittee be? The 3rd week of the
I think so.
month,
Yeah.
maybe, so you have a couple weeks lead time.
I think, and the September 22nd is ad meeting, so we, as needed, so we can,
You just need to,
Talk
well,
about
you're meeting
that.
you're meeting Thursday for policy
we're
subcommittee.
meeting Thursday for
and
policy.
Friday for budget subcommittee. So
we'll
then
have
you'll be
Tues-
able to report out on that
At our
at your
next meeting.
October 6th meeting.
Right, superintendent schools.
I
No,
sent
you
them
already-
to you at
you
that.
already- that's right.
We'll meet and then we'll bring them to the committee on October 6th.
October 6th, sorry, okay. All right, so moving on, new business correspondence. So I shared with the committee the emails that we received, and just so the community knows, when we do receive correspondence to the school committee, we will be sharing it out, and if it's not sensitive in nature pertaining to student or staff members' names, and we discussed, I know you and Caitlin discussed, that we would share correspondence that we received that we were able to bring to the community for discussion. So the email that we did receive was in response to the concerns with the library staffing. And so I was hoping that you could elaborate on that.
Sure. So I won't re-go over what you said at the beginning of the meeting, because that all still remains true. In April was the first time that we experienced a change in the staffing at the middle school, high school library. So at that time, the library assistant made the voluntary choice, she was not moved to the elementary school, made the voluntary choice to go to the elementary school, kind of like a trial to see if she would like that position for the next school year. In the meantime, instructional assistants were staffed in the library every single period last year so that the library did remain open. And now that was the goal for this year as well, that instructional assistants would staff each period of the library time. However, being down one instructional assistant, well, two, but at the time when we started school, one, I don't feel it is appropriate to pull an instructional assistant who is providing grid services, say on an IEP for inclusion services, to cover the library. So we sat down and we're problem solving this as an administrative team with the high school principal, the middle school principal, the assistant principal, and have been working out different things that we can do in the meantime while we're trying to hire for those instructional assistant positions. Some of the roadblocks that we've encountered, one is SPP, which I believe is student productive period. I know the student said he wasn't sure what it stood for, and VHS for the first 7 days of school have been in the cafeteria, and that was because we were trying to figure out how to staff that without that one instructional assistant, and Ms. Senecal, who sits in the office, can see them there if for some reason we did not have an adult available. The goal was always to get them back up into the library. So we do have a plan and have been meeting, and an email will be going out tomorrow from the administration as to who will be staffing that. So we do have a building-based sub that we are going to use to staff SPP and VHS, and it will be in the library. The only tricky situation is that our librarian is teaching 2 middle school classes this year. And she teaches those middle school classes currently in the library, and has expressed that it may be too distracting to teach middle school classes while SPP and VHS are also in the library. So we are problem solving that with the librarian currently as to whether or not we move to another location for those middle school classes, or if we have the conversation with our SPP and VHS students that there are classes going on in the corner of the library, so we need to be respectful of our noise level. So that's what we're working on there. We have also been brainstorming solutions to the Chromebook chargers. Where are those going to be checked out? And one of my biggest things that I've talked to the high school administration about is promoting some student accountability and responsibility. We have found a place that we can possibly house these Chromebooks, and I do believe that our 9th through 12th grade students can go into this place where a staff member will be, write down their name and write down the barcode for a computer that they are borrowing for the day. I don't think we need to have an adult that is physically writing those down and releasing Chromebooks. And then there would be administrative follow-up if those Chromebooks are not returned at the end of the day, the next day, most likely by our assistant principal at the high school. The other piece that we've talked about is making sure that kids have access to computers, printing, copiers. And if it's going to be a distraction for kids to be coming into the library to do that, we have made plans to move those into other centralized locations within the building. They don't need to be in the library, and if it's too distracting for kids to come in to photocopy or to make printing whatever they're doing, we can move that somewhere else so that it's accessible for students. So I think the most important piece here is nobody wants the library to be closed. I can speak for the high school and middle school administration that they've been working on this for the last 7 days, but they stepped into this situation. They didn't create it, and they're problem solving multiple ways to address this. And the other piece with advisory is that we do have to realize that we are a shared building. It is a middle school, high school building, and we cannot have 600 kids in the library during advisory. So it makes sense to split the days of advisory, that some days are for middle school and some days are for high school. And again, that's just because we do have shared staff and shared spaces. The other piece that I would implore all the students to do, and I know that the administration has done this, is that students aren't asking administration what's going on. Instead, they are often going from, this is what's happening on the first 6 days of school, to it's a school committee issue, where I would just ask students to approach your administration and ask them what's going on. I know for a fact that Mr. Urquhart and Mr. Nedzwicki have had multiple meetings over the past 2 days with students where they've said, hey, like, we're working on it. I promise you we're working on it, but just come and tell me what you need and we can work together, because if they don't know, they can't fix something. So I just want to say that, like I said, it's day 7. There's a whole list of things that they are trying to work through, getting to know students, getting to know families, getting to know staff, and they're prioritizing what needs to get done, and it will get done. But until we can fix our staffing shortage, there are going to be some periods that might be at this point in time uncovered, but that's not the end goal. The end goal is to have the library open all day for student use.
And there's no, a parent or something, if they're really concerned, could they volunteer after they went through the appropriate checks? Could
Yep.
they do?
So we have parent volunteers in the elementary library, where parents could come in and they could help shelve books, or
There's
check in and
volunteers
out
in the
books,
middle school.
which we would
Great.
love to have, so.
And then, and it doesn't have to be closed because there's an adult there.
Yeah, but that is one of the things. We just want to make sure that it's also safe.
Yeah, for sure.
So we don't want to open a library that there's no adult staff member in for some point in time. So if we are to move the middle school library classes to another location, we do need to make sure that there is an adult staffed in that library in case of an emergency.
So, like VHS,
Mhm.
there is someone who's being paid a stipend to run VHS, right?
Not during the school day. That stipend
Oh.
is for arranging VHS services, so it's work done outside of the school day.
Okay.
They're
my
just like the
misunderstanding.
main point of contact.
Oh. Okay, I
So we're
thought they
gonna
were
use the
overseeing it.
building-based sub, who works 5 days a week to cover SPP and VHS.
Okay, perfect.
Which is what we're currently doing, but we just wanted to make sure that we had a person for 5 days before bringing them back to the library.
But it sounds like there's volunteers who you could keep, like, that could be one of their things that they're volunteering, right? They're in the library, they're walking around, they're doing whatever.
Possibly, I'm a little hesitant to rely solely
Yeah,
on
for
parent
sure,
volunteers,
for
because
sure.
things happen with
Yeah.
work and life, and then you have students in a library without anyone there. Once we fill our open instructional assistant positions, we will be able to staff it.
Perfect.
I think mine is a concern that I would also second, that going to building-based administration is obviously the first line. We knew this problem was there. This committee knew this problem was there because I wasn't on it, but I sat in the audience and it was discussed that there was library problems. And we ran a trial, and you had a lot of students upset in the spring that the library was closed. And that was brought to attention. It was a conversation I tried to have. So I just want to be careful that we're, telling these students not to do what they, to come and speak in public forum, because I'm a little concerned that this was a problem we knew about, and there's a point where you can't just say it was last on building-based administrators, like.
I mean, there were multiple conversations with the building-based administrators, two of which whom up until the middle of June were still going to be working in Sutton, where we were working through plans as to how they were gonna staff it, and they were adamant that the best thing for that building was to increase their instructional assistants to provide in-class support for students over having a library assistant. And they're the people that are in that building all day. So who am I to tell them that you're wrong? I don't agree with what you're telling me and assessing. It was never an option that was put out by the school committee to, yes, you approved the final budget, but building-based administration, despite pushback and questioning, said that they had a plan and that it was going to work out, and that plan was having an instructional assistant in there every period, which there was last spring, except for if somebody was sick. And if somebody calls in sick, which unfortunately does often happen in the lead up to summer break, we did have to close it just because that staff member was unavailable. But from what I was told and what was communicated was that this was always going to be the plan, was to staff it with an instructional assistant.
On the classroom instruction that's happening with the librarian.
Yep.
Right? Has she always taught a class, and where was that
Not
class
middle
usually
school.
taught?
So she taught one middle school class, I believe, last year, and it's usually taught in the back right corner
Yeah.
of the library.
I was about to say, there is a very,
lab area.
there's a large open space, and then there's more kind of a
Yep, so
segment
administration
off.
is working with, so there are 30, I believe 34 kids in one of the sections of middle school, and there were only, say, 28 seats, but there is a way to reconfigure that room to fit the additional seats. But in the meantime, the instruction was just happening in the core of the library. So that's where there was a meeting this morning that had been scheduled since last week to figure out, do you want us to reconfigure the space and you can be in the back right corner with your class, or we do have an open room that they could have that middle school class in, which then frees up the library and we can staff it with our building-based sub for SVP and VHS.
34 student.
Middle school elective class.
Genius Hour, is
Yeah,
that what it's called?
Genius Hour.
It's a 6-week, right?
Yeah.
Like a special.
And so that's just where it is right now. But they could reconfigure the space if they wanted to in the back right. It's working with that person to see what they prefer. Do you want to be there, or we can find you an alternative
Is there a reason why it was in
location?
the library? It seems like that would be kind of disruptive.
It's just always where it's
Okay.
been.
They used to have 2 computer labs at the
Yeah.
back, and the
right on.
class utilized those, so that's why it came
Makes
to be.
sense.
So the change in the VHS being in the cafeteria, you said, was because when you knew you were down at one IA.
Yes, we didn't have someone to staff VHS and SPP all periods. So we didn't want to say like periods 2 and periods 3, you guys get to be in the library for SPP and VHS, but periods 5 and 7, you don't, because we don't have someone to cover that. That's inequitable to me. So in the meantime, we put them in the cafeteria while we were trying to figure out who can we have staff this, and we wanted to be able to work with the librarian to see what they wanted to do with their class schedule and SPP and VHS, because I don't think it's fair if she's gonna teach a class there and doesn't want people in the library, that for those 2 periods, oh, it stinks that you have VHS those 2 periods for the year, you're never gonna have access to the library. That just doesn't sit right with me. So we wanted to work out a plan as a team, but there's just so many moving parts, and when you're not fully staffed, that adds another complicated layer. And we were working with the union to see if we could get someone in there, and the final decision around all of this was not made until the week before school started, with the back and forths that I can't or shouldn't truly share at this type of meeting, but there were a lot of discussions that happened this summer with both unions, administration, and myself around this, that prevented planning from happening until a decision was made.
So this is still actively being worked on, and
Yes.
I assume, do you plan on having this rectified by end of September?
So SPP and VHS, we have a plan in place that will go out to staff and students this week. They will be in the library. The only question is where we're going to have the librarian teach, and we want to honor her and where she wants to be, with the same understanding, though, that we don't want it to be inequitable for certain students when she's teaching. So that part is staffed. We have someone staffed for SPP and VHS every single period.
So will the library be open
For
then?
SPP and VHS, yep.
No, when VHS and SPP are in the library, can other students come into the library?
With their teachers, you mean? Like if a class wanted to come in to do a project? Because I'm not sure why kids would
Yeah, I
be in
guess
there if they're supposed to be
So
in their core classes.
they're only going to the library with their teachers anyway, right?
Well,
If they're in a
Should
core
be.
class, okay.
yeah.
And there's no concept of like, oh, I have a free
But the
period, I'm a senior,
librarian
I
would,
can go to the
if your
library.
free period is SPP.
Yeah, okay.
But the librarian would partner with teachers to do certain like projects that might last like a period of like 6 weeks, and they may bring a class from the middle school into the library to do a project. That's
But it's
still
not like
available.
it's not like, hey, I've got no class, I'm gonna go to the library and like chill
You
out.
would be in SPP.
You'd be in SPP, okay.
Or VHS.
The only other one I would add on is that you hear a lot of students, they'll start a class and they'll say, oh shoot, my Chromebook's not working.
Right.
And instead of interrupting the teacher and asking the teacher to help, they'll just run to the library. But it sounds like you've
We
found
have
a
a
space.
location that we just haven't communicated that with the person yet, but we have a viable option that we've been working through.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, just increasing that student accountability and responsibility, like, I'm fairly certain that our 9th through 12th graders can
So
do that on their own.
What about the student that talked about needing to go in the morning and use
So
the-
that was the other piece. So the library will be open at 7:15 with this new plan. The 7 o'clock time was the previous library assistant donating her own time from 7 to 7:15 out of the goodness of her heart. That was why it was open. The school day starts at 7:15 is when that person will be here. So it will be open from 7:15 to 7:30, which it currently is not. But we did not budget for someone to be there at 7 o'clock.
and the doors were being locked.
In the morning.
In the morning.
Because the librarian does not start their day
Till
until 7:45, because they keep the library open until 2:30, and that's within the STA contract. So for this first 7 days of school, while we were working through our plan, there was not a staff member that we could allocate from 7:15 to 7:30. So now that we have this plan in place, that this person is going to be housed in the library to do SPP and VHS, they will be there at 7:15.
I want to go back to correspondence.
Sure.
So we modified this agenda item. Used to just say new business, but in accordance with other boards, this was a good spot for this. But I guess I'm wondering, when a parent either talks at public forum or sends us a question through the form, I just want to talk through, like, where does that information go? Like, how are we going to make sure we stay on top of it, or that they're happy with the response? Or, you know, I just wanted to see if we wanted to talk through some of that. Or
I think one thing that I thought of is, could we ask the question, have you reported this to building administration?
Oh, on the form.
On the
On
form.
the form, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
I like that.
Just to, because we come at it not knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that'll
A great suggestion.
give us
It's
just.
usually my first response, though.
Yeah.
Great suggestion.
And that makes sense, because it's not really fair to those guys and you all to have it kind of escalate from 0 to 100 pretty quickly.
Who maintains that form? Di?
I'll have her change it and just add like a checkbox.
And Di does a great job of informing any of the administration that the question might concern after it's been discussed at school committee,
Okay.
to loop back in with them and say, hey, have you followed up in regards to this? You said you would.
Okay.
What was the intent of the form itself? Is that to be sort of alternative to
An email?
public comment?
The school committee form?
Yeah.
I think it was just a more accessible
Just a more accessible
rather
way.
than.
But I guess, is it treated as public comment, or is it treated as if it were an email to the entire school committee?
It's certainly public record. I think it's like public comment,
It
because your
would
name's
be
on
a
it.
public record, but I
Yeah.
think it's just another platform of communication to the committee.
Where are you going with that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know one was shared out, and I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
is that
Ease, like that it
you know,
goes
is-
to all, or no, it
No.
only goes to you.
It only goes to the chair.
chair, which now I'm getting them all.
Twice? No.
Now I am receiving them. There was a little glitch, but now I am getting them all, so I've been sharing them out. But I guess it's at my discretion to decide, I guess, if it's appropriate to bring up at school committee, because we did receive some that were like over the summer that I would not share because they pertain to particular students and concerns. Yep.
Sure. Okay.
So I guess it would say.
I don't know the answer. I don't know how long you have had the form.
I know in the past chairs have forwarded some of the comments back to administration to answer if they felt that it wasn't properly, gone through the correct chain. I've received a number of them as it relates to budget where they just go 0 to 100 straight to the committee. Hey, did you talk to the principal, business manager, superintendent, and committee? And past chairs have kind of done the middleman communication of sending it back down.
Okay. I mean, I suppose they don't have to do the form. Our emails are on there, so they could.
Yeah, well, maybe this is, I think, might be taking some of, because we don't want to elevate something that comes in through the form over people also speaking in public. They should be on the same.
Oh, yeah,
They're on the same level,
I'm not
yeah.
saying that. I like to keep track, and I have a couple different, of like, okay, from last year, the buses, like, when the person came again to speak about like sub-drivers, just so we're held accountable. We're all making sure we're trying to move in the right direction of answering people's concerns that's all.
So it's almost like this catch-all, new business / correspondence, includes also feedback that might come up in public forum, like it did tonight.
sure.
Right? We talked about an issue that was obviously on the minds. It came in through correspondence, but yes, it puts it all on the same playing field,
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
which I think is important to ultimately go exactly to what you just said, be open, transparent. We're sharing out that we're receiving this, and we're trying to be responsive. Obviously, student confidentiality and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's just, I've definitely had trouble, like, getting things to, whether it's like, I know policy committee's gonna be talking about one of the things that was brought up in years past, the outside sports or something for the high school, things like that. So just us keeping a tally and holding each other, I guess, accountable. Yeah.
As far as your question, I think the form started last year, correct?
I think it's a
No,
little
it's been
older
there.
than that.
Older?
Yeah, it's been there.
We were receiving it for connections questions, which was about 2 years now.
I think before that.
Yeah, and it was around before that as well. I think it only became highlighted once some of these larger conversation points came to be, and then people became familiar with using them.
They found it because the
Because
website.
the website was so good, yeah.
Communication check.
Done.
Any other new business that you would like to address?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go to the Waters Farm apple peeling volunteer event, and I thought that was a good event, and would just encourage people to, if they're looking for volunteer hours, look at the Waters Farm. Also had the opportunity to go to the Booster Club meeting, and they're always looking for volunteers, and the Booster Club is a great organization that provides a lot of funding for our Sutton athletes. So,
Don't forget the fun National Grid fleet assessment.
and the fun National Grid fleet assessment, I had the opportunity to be on a call about electrifying our fleet, and that was interesting. There'll be more to come on that.
Thank you for taking that call.
Oh, it was great.
Jumping at that one. Well, hold on, and then believe it was the middle school PTO. Did they grab you? I almost was like, I could cancel my plans, but they were having difficult time getting volunteers for the ice cream social. And so I volunteered my high school student. Does that count?
Whatever, yeah.
But no, I think they're gonna be fine, but I thought it was great to see them doing something earlier in the year. A lot of the teen night out, usually they wait a little bit, so.
I think it usually starts with a movie night, but,
Ice cream's acceptable.
yeah, they're
Um,
excited about that.
But
so.
yes, looking for volunteers to help staff that is a call out.
I'm sitting it out, 16-year wedding anniversary, so.
Congratulations.
Hey, go get some ice cream.
We have dinner reservations.
With no other new business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, first and second, motion to adjourn. Let's take it to a vote. Chris?
Matera, aye.
Darling, aye.
Kozachka, aye.
Reed Erickson, aye.
Royce, aye.
All right, motion dismissed, 5-2.